The rain felt like needles, but the fear was colder. He wasn't running to catch me, he was running to steer me. My lungs screamed for air I couldn't give them. Each breath tasted like copper and terror as my feet slammed against the slick pavement, my worn sneakers barely gripping the rain-soaked street. Behind me, I could hear him. Elias. His footsteps echoing in a rhythm that felt deliberate, calculated. Not the frantic sprint of a pursuer, but the measured pace of someone herding prey toward a trap. Run, Maya. Just run. But where? I'd been running for 3 states. 3 states of motels with peeling wallpaper, of looking over my shoulder at every coffee shop, of jumping at every notification on my phone. The graphic design client who wouldn't stop calling, the packages arriving at addresses I'd never lived at, the photos of me that I didn't remember being taken. Elias's voice echoed in my memory, dismissing my fears. Maya, you're being paranoid. I'm your brother. I'm the only family you have left. But worry didn't explain the rage in his texts, the way he always knew where I was. The feeling that my reality was cracking at the edges, showing me glimpses of something I couldn't quite remember. The neon lights of the city bled into the rain like watercolors. Red, blue, gold, all blurring into a nightmare I couldn't wake from. My side cramped, sharp and vicious, but I pushed harder. Ahead, maybe 50 feet through the downpour, I spotted it. The Onyx Lounge. The elegant script barely visible, but the warm amber glow spilling from its windows promised sanctuary. Closed. It looked closed. The kind of exclusive place where people like me, soaked, terrified, ordinary, didn't belong. I didn't care. 30 feet, 20. I could hear Elias closer now, his breath, his voice cutting through the storm. Maya, stop running. You know me. That was the problem. I didn't. Not anymore. 10 feet. 5. My hands hit the heavy oak door, slipping once on the rain-slicked brass before finding purchase. The door swung open with surprising ease, and I crashed inside, into absolute silence. Welcome back, my fierce hearts and midnight dreamers. Before we dive in, make sure you're subscribed, hit that like button, and tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing our little dark romance family stretch across cities, countries, and time zones. Every click, every comment, every bit of love you leave here helps us keep unraveling these dangerous love stories and high-stakes betrayals together. So find your quiet place, dim the lights, and get ready. Let's begin. I slammed the heavy oak door behind me, my wet hands fumbling with the bolt until it slid home with a solid thunk. The sound echoed through the space like a gunshot, final and damning. Please, I gasped, spinning to face the room, my voice ragged and desperate. He's going to. The words died in my throat. The Onyx Lounge wasn't a lounge at all. It was a throne room disguised as a bar. The space was all dark wood and darker intentions. Leather booths the color of dried blood. Low amber lighting that cast shadows in the corners where men in expensive suits stood like sentinels. The air smelled of aged whiskey, tobacco, and something else. Something dangerous and intoxicating that made my pulse spike for reasons that had nothing to do with fear. Or everything to do with a different kind of fear. 4 men occupied the room, all watching me with the predatory stillness of apex predators interrupted mid-hunt. Their suits easily exceed my entire year's rent in value. Their faces were carved from stone and violence. One had his hand inside his jacket, the universal gesture of a man reaching for a weapon. But it was the 5th man who shattered what remained of my reality. He sat in a leather chair near the back wall, one leg crossed over the other with aristocratic ease, a crystal tumbler of amber liquid balanced in his long fingers. He didn't turn abruptly at my entrance like the others. Instead, he moved with deliberate, predatory grace, setting down his glass with surgical precision before rising to his full height. Tall, taller than Elias, broader, wearing a charcoal suit that molded to his frame like a second skin, perfectly tailored to accommodate shoulders that promised violence, and arms that looked like they could break bones or cradle with equal skill. His dark hair was styled back from a face that could have been carved by a sculptor with a vendetta against softness. Sharp jaw, high cheekbones, a straight nose that looked like it had been broken once and reset with meticulous care. A thin scar traced his jawline, barely visible, but somehow making him more devastating. And his eyes, God, his eyes, dark, almost black in the low amber light. They fixed on me with an intensity that made Elias's obsession seem like casual interest. This man looked at me the way a wolf studies prey, not with desperation, but with absolute certainty of ownership. A dragon tattoo coiled up his neck from beneath his collar, the tail visible just above the crisp white of his shirt. When he swallowed, the dragon seemed to move, to breathe. Something in my chest cracked open. Not fear. Recognition. I'm sorry, I managed, hating how my voice trembled. I was acutely aware of how I must look, soaked through, my dark curls plastered to my face and neck, my simple jeans and sweater clinging to me uncomfortably, my chest heaving. I didn't mean to intrude. I just needed. The bang on the door behind me cut off my explanation like a blade. My entire body jerked. I pressed myself harder against the door, feeling the wood shudder as Elias pounded from the other side. Maya! His voice filtered through, sharp with panic and fury. Maya, I know you're in there. Come out. Now. You don't understand what you're doing. The 4 men in suits shifted with practiced precision, their movements coordinated like pieces on a chessboard. The one with his hand in his jacket had fully drawn his weapon now, a sleek black pistol that he kept lowered but ready. But the dark-haired man, the one who commanded the room without saying a word, simply tilted his head slightly. His gaze moved from me to the door behind me, then back to my face. Something flickered in those black eyes. Not surprise, not concern, satisfaction. He glanced at his wrist. Watch that likely surpassed the cost of a car, platinum and precise. And a smile touched his lips. Not warm, not comforting, the kind of smile a predator gives before it strikes. You're 3 minutes late, Maya, he said. His voice matched everything else about him. Deep, controlled, with an undertone of danger that made every hair on my body stand at attention. It rolled through the space like distant thunder, a warning of the storm to come. My mind fractured. 3 minutes late. Late for what? I'd never been here before. I'd never seen this place before. I didn't know this man, but my body knew him. My body went still in a way that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with recognition. My pulse slowed instead of racing. My breathing deepened, like a wounded animal finally finding its den. I started, but he was already moving toward me. He walked with the fluid grace of an apex predator, each step measured and purposeful, closing the distance between us until he stood close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body, smell the intoxicating scent of his cologne, something dark and woody and expensive that wrapped around me like smoke. Up close, he was devastating. Perhaps 35, maybe older, with the kind of presence that made you want to either run or kneel. Every line of his face spoke of control and consequences. Behind me, Elias pounded harder. Maya, please. He's going to kill me. He poisoned me. He said the only way to get the antidote was to bring you here. I didn't have a choice. I froze. The words tumbled through my mind, trying to make sense, trying to form a pattern I could understand. The dark-haired man's lips curved into something that might have been amusement if it weren't so cold. Your brother is correct, he said softly, his voice pitched for my ears alone. I did poison him. A slow-acting neurotoxin. Painful but not immediately fatal. I needed him motivated enough to guide you here, without being obvious about it. My blood turned to ice. What? He was just the sheepdog, Maya. He reached up, and I should have flinched, should have pulled away, but I didn't, couldn't. His fingers touched my jaw. Warm, careful, reverent, like handling something precious and broken. But I am the wolf. His thumb traced my cheekbone, and a memory flashed. This same touch, this same hand, but I was laughing, and he was smiling, and there was a ring. Welcome home, Kim Woo-jin whispered, and my entire reality shattered like glass. The world tilted sideways, not the room, that remained solid, anchored by expensive wood and the weight of armed men. But my reality, the careful construct of 3 years as Maya Morrison, the graphic designer, cracked like ice under pressure. I don't know you, I whispered, but my voice wavered, betrayed me, because my body was a liar. My pulse had slowed the moment his fingers touched my skin. My breathing had deepened. Every cell in my body recognized him, even as my mind screamed, stranger, danger, run. Woo-jin's thumb traced the curve of my jaw with devastating gentleness. Your mind doesn't remember me, he said softly, his accent wrapping around the words like silk over steel. But your body does. Watch. He pressed 2 fingers to the pulse point at my throat. My breath hitched. Not from fear, but from the electric shock of familiarity that raced down my spine. He counted silently, his dark eyes holding mine, and I watched something like pain flicker across his face. 72 beats per minute, he murmured. You should be at 120. Minimum. After that sprint. After seeing me. After being touched by a stranger. His fingers slid away slowly, reluctantly. But I'm not a stranger, am I, Maya? Your body knows exactly who I am. Behind me, Elias pounded harder on the door. The wood shuddered against my back. Maya, please. The antidote. He said you had to come willingly or he wouldn't give it to me. I'm dying. You have to believe me. The desperation in his voice pierced through the fog of confusion. Elias. My brother. The only family I had left after our parents died in that car accident when I was 19. He'd raised me, protected me, been everything. I turned toward the door, instinct warring with the strange pull Woojin exerted. You poisoned him, I said, and my voice came out harder than I expected. Stronger. You used my brother as bait. Yes. No hesitation. No remorse. Woojin stepped back, giving me space but somehow taking all the air with him. I needed you here. He was leverage. That's monstrous. I am many things, Maya. He moved to the bar, poured a glass of water with movements that spoke of rigid control. But I have never lied to you. Not once in all the years I've known you. He held out the glass. Drink. You're dehydrated. I shouldn't take it. Shouldn't trust anything from this man who admitted to poisoning my brother. But my throat was raw from running, from screaming, from fear. My hand reached out before my mind could stop it. Our fingers brushed as I took the glass. Another shock, another flash, his hands on my waist, lifting me onto a kitchen counter. Sunlight streaming through windows, laughter, the taste of coffee and something sweeter. The glass slipped. Woojin caught it before it fell, his reflexes inhuman. He set it on the bar, never breaking eye contact. You're remembering, he said. Not a question. I don't know what I'm doing. The admission felt like defeat. I don't know what's real anymore. Elias's pounding had turned frantic. Maya. Oh God, it hurts, please, he's killing me. One of Woojin's men. The one with the gun. Spoke in rapid Korean. Woojin responded without looking away from me, his voice sharp and commanding. The man holstered his weapon and moved toward the door. What are you doing? I demanded, letting him in. Woojin's expression remained impassive. You need to see the truth. All of it. The bolt slid back with a metallic clang that echoed in the sudden silence. The door swung open. Elias fell through the entrance like a puppet with cut strings, collapsing onto the polished floor in a heap of rain-soaked desperation. His hands clutched his stomach, his face twisted in agony. Sweat poured down his temples despite the cold. Maya, he gasped, reaching for me with shaking hands. Thank God. The antidote. Please. I started forward, but Woojin's hand caught my wrist. Not roughly, but firm enough to stop me cold. Look at him, Maya, Woojin said quietly. Really look. I did. Elias was on his knees, trembling, tears streaming down his face. But his eyes darted to Woojin with something that wasn't just pain or fear. It was calculation, recognition, and beneath it all, fury. You bastard. Elias spat at Woojin, venom dripping from every syllable. You said if I brought her, you'd let me go. You promised. I promised you the antidote, Woojin corrected, his voice cold as winter. And I am a man of my word. He nodded to one of his men, who produced a small vial from his jacket pocket. Clear liquid glinted in the low light. Elias lunged for it, but the man held it just out of reach. First, Woojin said, tell your sister why you really brought her here. Elias's face went white. What? No. I told her. The poison. There is no poison. Woojin's words fell like stones into still water, creating ripples that spread and spread. I never touched you, Elias. You were never in any danger from me. The world stopped. What? My voice barely worked. Woojin's gaze shifted to me, and for the first time, I saw something like regret flicker in those dark depths. I told him I'd poisoned him. I showed him a vial. I described the symptoms, and his guilt did the rest. His attention returned to Elias. The human mind is a powerful thing. Tell her what you believed you were dying from. Tell her why you were so willing to believe me. Elias was shaking his head frantically, his performance of agony forgotten. No, you're lying. I felt it. The pain. Psychosomatic, Woojin said. Your body manifested symptoms because your conscience knew you deserved punishment. He took a step toward Elias, and my brother scrambled backward like a crab. Tell her what you did 3 years ago. Tell her why you owe me a debt written in blood. I don't know what you're talking about. But Elias's voice cracked. broke. Wu Jin crouched down to Elias's level, his movements predatory and precise. When he spoke, his voice was soft, deadly. I gave you one chance to do this the easy way, to bring her to me and walk away clean. But you're going to make this difficult, aren't you? He stood, brushing invisible dust from his suit. Marco, he said to the man with the gun. Show her. Marco moved to a sleek sound system built into the bar's wall. He pressed a button, and the speakers crackled to life. Static. Then breathing. Then a voice I recognized and didn't recognize at all. My voice. If you are hearing this, the recording said. And the woman speaking sounded nothing like me. Her tone was cold, professional, devoid of emotion. They've wiped your mind. Everything you think you know about the last 3 years is a lie constructed to keep you docile and hidden. Your name is not Maya Morrison. You are not a graphic designer. You are the ghost. And you stole something that could destroy the most powerful criminal syndicate in the eastern seaboard. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The voice continued, relentless. Do not trust Elias. He is not your brother. He is your handler, placed by the Choi clan to monitor you after the memory wipe. Everything he's told you about your past, the dead parents, the car accident, growing up together, is fabricated, run to the man with the dragon tattoo on his neck, Kim Woo-jin. He is the only person you didn't betray. He is your... The recording cut off abruptly. No, I whispered, then louder. No, that's not. I remember my childhood. I remember Elias teaching me to ride a bike. I remember. Implanted memories, Woo-jin said. And there was something raw in his voice now. Pain bleeding through the control. The Choi clan has a psychologist on their payroll, Dr. Sarah Kim. She specializes in memory manipulation. You were her masterpiece. I looked at Elias. Really looked. And I saw the truth written in every line of his face. The guilt. The fear. The anger at being caught. Maya, Elias said, and now his voice was different. Harder. The desperate brother act had shattered. Whatever he's telling you, it's not what you think. I was trying to protect you. From what? My voice didn't sound like my own. It sounded like the woman on the recording. Cold, sharp, dangerous. From him. Elias pointed at Woo-jin with a shaking finger. From the Gumsung Syndicate. They're criminals, Maya. Killers. You stole evidence that could bring them all down, and they want you dead for it. I was hiding you, keeping you safe. By lying to me? The words tasted like ashes. By making me think I was someone I'm not? Because the person you were is a killer. Elias scrambled to his feet, desperation making him bold. The ghost isn't some romantic anti-hero. She's a thief and an assassin who's left bodies across 3 continents. I was saving you from yourself. Woo-jin moved so fast I barely registered it. One moment he was standing by the bar, the next. His hand was around Elias's throat, slamming him against the wall with controlled violence that spoke of years of practice. You took her from me, Woo-jin said, his voice dropping to a register that made every man in the room go still. You convinced her to wipe her own memories. You sold her the lie that she was protecting me by disappearing. And then you kept her drugged and docile for 3 years while you sold her secrets to the highest bidder. I was protecting her from you. Elias choked out. Woo-jin's grip tightened. I am her husband. The words hung in the air like a detonation. My knees gave out. I caught myself against the bar. The polished wood, the only solid thing in a world made of lies. You're married, I heard myself say. We're married. Woo-jin released Elias, who crumpled to the floor gasping. When Woo-jin turned to face me, his expression was raw, devastated. All the careful control stripped away to reveal the man beneath the monster. For 4 years, he said quietly. You walked into my club to steal from me. You were 23, beautiful, terrifying. You held a gun to my head and demanded I open the safe. His lips curved into something that might have been a smile if it weren't so broken. I told you I'd give you everything in it if you had dinner with me first. I couldn't speak, couldn't move. You laughed, he continued, taking a step toward me. You said, that's the worst negotiation tactic I've ever heard. And I said, I'm not negotiating, I'm proposing. Another step. Another fracture in my carefully constructed reality. We were married 6 months later in a courthouse in Seoul. You wore a red dress because you said white was for virgins and liars, and you were neither. We built an empire together. You were my queen, my partner, my... His voice cracked. My everything. The man with the gun, Marco. Cleared his throat uncomfortably. The other men studied the floor, the ceiling. anywhere but the raw emotion playing out before them. I looked down at my hands. These hands that were supposedly a graphic designer's. But now I noticed things I'd never questioned before. Calluses in strange places, scars so faint they were almost invisible, the way my fingers automatically curled into a defensive position when startled. "I need proof," I whispered. Woojin reached into his jacket slowly, carefully, and withdrew a phone. He unlocked it with his thumbprint and held it out to me. The screen showed a photo. A woman with my face, but not. She was laughing, her head thrown back, her curls wild and free. She wore a red dress and sat on the lap of a man in a tuxedo. Woojin, younger, smiling in a way that transformed his severe features into something almost boyish. I scrolled. More photos. Us at a shooting range. The woman. Me. Holding a rifle with expert ease. Us in formal wear at what looked like a gallery opening. Us in bed. Her face soft with sleep. His hand on her. My bare shoulder. His expression tender in a way that made my chest ache. "Stop," I said, but I kept scrolling. Couldn't stop. Then I found the video. Just 10 seconds. The woman. Me. Stood in what looked like this very bar. She wore leather pants and a black tank top, a gun holstered at her thigh. She was talking to someone off camera, and then Woojin walked into frame. She turned, her entire face lighting up. He said something I couldn't hear, and she launched herself at him. He caught her easily, lifting her off her feet as she wrapped her legs around his waist and kissed him with a passion that made the air in the room feel too thin. When the video ended, I was crying, tears streaming down my face for a life I couldn't remember, for a love I'd lost, for a woman who'd been so strong, so sure, so entirely unlike the frightened creature I'd become. "I don't remember," I choked out. "I don't remember any of it. I don't remember you. I don't remember being her." Woojin took the phone gently from my shaking hands. "I know, but I remember enough for both of us." He cupped my face with both hands, his touch reverent. "And I will spend every day of the rest of our lives helping you remember, or building new memories, whatever you need." "Why?" The question barely escaped. "Why go through all this? The poison ruse? Forcing Elias to bring me here? Why not just tell me the truth?" His smile was bitter. "Because you wouldn't have believed me. You would have run. And there are people who want you dead, Maya. People who will not stop hunting you until one of us is in the ground." His thumbs wiped away my tears with infinite care. "I needed you here, where I can protect you." "By claiming me," I said, remembering his earlier words. "Like property." "Yes. No apology. It's the only way to keep you alive." Behind us, Elias struggled to his feet. "She doesn't want this. Can't you see? She's terrified of you." Woojin didn't even glance at him. "Marco, remove him, gently." 2 men moved to flank Elias. He fought, screaming obscenities, threats, desperate pleas, but they hauled him toward the door with practiced efficiency. "You can't keep her prisoner," Elias shouted. "I'll go to the police." You'll do nothing," Woojin said coldly. "Because if you breathe a word of this to anyone, I will release the evidence of what you did to my wife, and then the Choi clan will kill you themselves for your failure. Go, live, and be grateful I'm letting you walk away at all." The door slammed shut, muffling Elias's protests. The silence that followed felt heavy, suffocating. I was alone with Kim Woojin, my alleged husband. A man I didn't remember but whose touch made my body sing with recognition. "What now?" I asked. He studied me for a long moment, and I watched emotions flicker across his face too quickly to name. Want, longing, restraint, fear. "Now," he said finally, "I take you home." The elevator to Woojin's penthouse moved with the kind of smooth, silent efficiency that spoke of obscene wealth. Glass walls offered a dizzying view of the city sprawling below. Millions of lights flickering against the darkness like fallen stars. I pressed my back against the far wall, as far from Woojin as the confined space would allow, but I could still feel him, the heat of his body, the weight of his gaze. He draped his suit jacket over my shoulders before we left the Onyx Lounge, and it smelled like him. That dark, woody cologne mixed with something uniquely him, smoke and danger and a hint of citrus. I shouldn't have found it comforting. But my body, that traitor, relaxed beneath the weight of the fabric. "You live in the sky," I said, just to break the silence. My voice sounded too loud in the quiet. "I live where people can't reach me without invitation." He stood with his hands in his pockets, that careful stillness radiating from him. After you disappeared, I stopped sleeping on the ground floor. Couldn't tolerate the vulnerability. The elevator slowed, and the doors whispered open onto a private foyer. Slate tile, recessed lighting, a single piece of abstract art on the wall that looked like violence rendered in crimson and gold. Woojin gestured for me to exit first. A courtesy that felt strange coming from a man who'd orchestrated my psychological kidnapping. The penthouse beyond was a study in controlled opulence. Floor-to-ceiling windows wrapped around the space, offering 360-degree views of the city. The furniture was minimal but clearly expensive. Leather and steel and dark wood. Everything precise, everything in its place. A fortress, disguised as a home. And everywhere, subtly woven into the design, were hints of her, of me, the woman I'd been. A telescope pointed toward the eastern sky. I knew, somehow knew. It was positioned to watch the sunrise. Vinyl records lined one wall, hundreds of them, organized in a system that my fingers itched to touch. A sketch pad sat on the coffee table, and when I moved closer, I saw the charcoal drawings, cityscapes, hands, the dragon tattoo that wrapped around Woojin's neck, rendered in painstaking detail. "You drew that," Woojin said from behind me. "3 weeks before you left. You said you wanted to capture the way the scales seemed to breathe when I swallowed." I picked up the sketch with shaking hands. The style was familiar in a way that made my head ache. "I don't remember drawing. You were trained in observation. It made you a better thief." He moved to the bar. Apparently every space he occupied had one, and poured 2 glasses of something amber. "But you did it for pleasure, too. You said it quieted your mind." He offered me a glass. I took it, our fingers not quite touching this time. I was learning to avoid that contact, that electric shock of wrong recognition. The liquor burned going down, but it was smooth, expensive. It warmed my chest and loosened the tight knot of fear that had lived there since I'd crashed into the Onyx Lounge. Why did I leave? The question escaped before I could stop it. If we were happy, if I loved you, why would I erase my memories and disappear? Something dark crossed Woojin's face. Pain, yes, but also guilt. He drained his glass in one swallow and set it down with careful precision. "You were trying to protect me. From what?" "From the truth about my father." He moved to the windows, his back to me, his shoulders tense beneath the white shirt. The dragon tattoo was visible above his collar, its tail disappearing beneath the fabric. "You stole evidence that proved he was a traitor to the syndicate. He was selling information to rival clans, embezzling money, planning to have me killed so he could maintain control." My chest tightened. "And you didn't know?" I suspected, but I didn't want to believe it. He turned, and the city lights cast shadows across his face, making him look like something carved from darkness itself. "You found proof, undeniable, and you knew what that proof would force me to do." "Kill him," I whispered. "Yes." No emotion in the word, just cold fact. Syndicate law is absolute. Betrayal is punishable by death, even if the traitor is your own blood, especially if he's your own blood. To maintain power, I would have had to execute my father myself. I sat down on the leather sofa before my legs could give out. "So I took the evidence and ran." "You took the evidence and made a deal with Elias." Woojin moved closer, but stopped a respectful distance away. "He convinced you that if you disappeared, if you erased yourself and started over, the evidence would disappear with you. The council would have no choice but to let the matter go. My father would face humiliation but not death, and I wouldn't have to be the one to pull the trigger. But that's not what happened." His laugh was bitter. "No. Elias was playing both sides. He took your money, arranged the memory wipe, and then sold the evidence to the Choi clan. They used it to blackmail my father into even deeper betrayals. It got worse, sloppier, until the council had no choice but to act. And your father is dead." The words were flat, empty. "I killed him 6 months after you disappeared. Not because I wanted to, but because if I didn't, the council would have questioned my loyalty, would have torn apart everything we built." I drank more of the liquor, needing the burn. "I'm sorry. Don't be." He finally sat, but on the chair across from me, maintaining distance. "You were trying to save me from that choice. You loved me enough to erase yourself, to become someone ordinary and safe, and far away from the violence." His hands clenched into fists on his knees. "But it didn't work, because I spent 3 years finding you, tracking every Maya Morrison in North America, watching, waiting, until I was certain." "The headaches," I said suddenly. I've been having them for months. Migraines that felt like my skull was cracking open. The memory wipe isn't permanent. The neural pathways try to rebuild themselves. Your brain was fighting to remember. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. That's why Elias kept you moving. New city every 6 months. Minimal social contact. He was trying to prevent triggers that might unlock the blocks. But something changed. You started having the dreams. Not a question. I nodded slowly. Dreams of hands I didn't recognize. A dragon that moved. A voice speaking Korean. I met his eyes. Your subconscious was stronger than the programming. Something like hope flickered in his expression. You were coming back to me. Elias knew it. That's why he agreed to my deal so easily. He knew he was losing control. I set down the glass, my hands too unsteady to hold it anymore. You said there's a bounty on my head. Why? If the evidence is already out, if your father is already dead, what do I have that's worth killing for? Woojin's expression went carefully blank. You have the originals, the unedited files. And in those files is evidence that the Choi clan was complicit in my father's treason. Evidence that could bring down not just them, but 3 other major clans. I don't remember where they are. I know. But they don't believe that. The council has authorized 7 different contractors to bring you in, dead or alive, though they prefer alive so they can extract the location before they kill you. He stood, moving to the windows again, and I understood now it was his thinking space, where he went to maintain control. Syndicate law states that any asset claimed as personal property by a ranking member cannot be touched without declaring war against that member's entire clan. By claiming you, I've made you untouchable. As long as I'm yours. Yes, I laughed, and it came out jagged. So I traded one cage for another. He turned sharply. You think this is a cage? What else would you call it? You said I can't leave. That I'm your property. That sounds like a cage to me. It's a fortress, he countered, his voice going hard. It's the only thing standing between you and a bullet. I'm sorry if you find protection insulting. Protection would be helping me leave the city, giving me a new identity, letting me disappear again. And how long would that last? He crossed the space between us in 3 strides, and suddenly he was close. Too close. Looming over me with barely restrained fury. 6 months? A year? Until the next contractor tracks you down? Until someone less patient than me decides to just put a bullet in your head, rather than waste time with extractions? I stood my ground even though my heart hammered. So, I'm supposed to just accept this? Play house with a man I don't remember while assassins circle outside? You're supposed to stay alive. His voice dropped to something dangerous, primal. You're supposed to let me keep you safe until we figure out where you hid the evidence. And then, when this is over, when the threat is neutralized, you can decide if you want to remember or if you want me to let you go. You'd do that? Let me go? Something cracked in his expression. The control he wore like armor fractured, and beneath it I saw devastation. If that's what you wanted, he said quietly. If being here, being with me, made you that miserable, I would let you walk away. But I would spend every day of the rest of my life making sure no one ever touched you. Even if I couldn't. The rawness in his voice did something to my chest. Tightened it. Made it hard to breathe. I don't know what I want, I admitted. I don't know who I am. You're Maya Morrison. And you're the ghost. You're the woman who wore red to her wedding and the woman who hides in coffee shops sketching strangers. You're all of it. He reached up slowly, telegraphing the movement, and touched my face. This time I didn't flinch. And you're my wife. Even if you don't remember it. Even if you never remember it. His thumb traced my lower lip, and heat flared low in my belly. My body knew him, wanted him, even as my mind screamed danger. I need to shower, I said, because I needed space, needed to think. I need to change. He dropped his hand immediately, stepping back. Second door on the left. Your clothes are still in the closet. I couldn't. He stopped, started again. I left everything exactly as you had it. I moved past him, feeling the magnetic pull even as I put distance between us. But at the hallway entrance, I stopped. Woojin? He looked at me, and the city lights behind him made a halo of shadow around his frame. Thank you, I said, for not lying to me, for telling me the truth even when it hurt. His smile was small, sad. I told you. I have never lied to you. Not once in all the years I've known you. I nodded and walked down the hallway to the bedroom he'd indicated. The room was a revelation. Where the rest of the penthouse was masculine and minimal, this space was softer. A massive bed dominated the room, dressed in charcoal linens, but the walls held more of those charcoal sketches. Dozens of them, mounted and framed. Faces of strangers, cityscapes, and Wu Jin. So many images of Wu Jin, sleeping, working, smiling. I approached one drawing slowly. It showed him sitting at a desk, his shirt sleeves rolled up, tattoos visible on his forearms. The detail was extraordinary. Every line of ink, every shadow, captured with obsessive care. This was love, I realized. This was what it looked like when someone mattered so much you needed to memorize every inch of them. The closet was a walk-in that could have been its own apartment. And true to his word, one entire side was filled with women's clothes. My clothes, leather pants and silk blouses and combat boots and designer heels. The dichotomy of the ghost, elegant and deadly. I chose simple leggings and an oversized sweater, something that felt more like the Maya I knew. The shower was marble and chrome, with water pressure that felt like heaven against my aching muscles. I stood under the spray until the rain and sweat and fear washed away, leaving only exhaustion behind. When I emerged, towel-dried and wearing the borrowed clothes that fit perfectly, I found Wu Jin in the kitchen. He'd changed too, black pants and a fitted black t-shirt that showed the full scope of the tattoos that covered his arms, dragons and tigers and symbols I didn't understand. Art and violence written on his skin. He was cooking, actually cooking. The scent of garlic and ginger filled the air. "You cook," I said, surprised. "You taught me." He didn't look up from the pan he was tending. "You said if I was going to be a crime lord, I needed to know how to take care of myself. Relying on others for basic needs was a weakness." I leaned against the counter, watching him move with the same precise grace he applied to everything. "What are you making?" "Kimchi jjigae, your favorite." He glanced at me then, something vulnerable in his eyes. Or it was. I don't know if your tastes changed. I don't know either. We ate at the island in silence, the stew warming me from the inside out. It tasted like comfort, like home, and I hated that my body recognized it, even as my mind drew a blank. "I had the bedroom prepared for you," Wu Jin said as we finished. "But there's also a guest room if you'd prefer space. Where will you sleep?" "Wherever you're not." "I won't." He stopped, his jaw tightening. "I won't touch you without permission. I know you don't remember me. I know this situation is impossible. I won't make it worse by forcing intimacy you don't want." The consideration in his words made my chest ache. "Thank you." He nodded and began clearing the dishes. I helped, and we moved around each other in the kitchen with a synchronicity that felt practiced. Familiar, like we'd done this dance 1,000 times before. When everything was clean, when there were no more distractions, we stood in the living room facing each other. The city sprawled below us, indifferent to the drama playing out in this glass tower. "Good night, Maya," Wu Jin said softly. "Good night." I retreated to the bedroom, closing the door behind me. But I didn't lock it, couldn't quite bring myself to. I lay in the massive bed that smelled faintly of him and stared at the ceiling, my mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Fear, confusion, curiosity, and beneath it all, a pull toward the man sleeping somewhere in this penthouse. A pull that felt like gravity, like coming home. I touched my lips where his thumb had traced, and my body responded with a heat I didn't understand. Who had I been? And who was I becoming? The questions followed me into restless sleep, where I dreamed of dragons and blood and hands that knew exactly how to touch me. I woke to silence and sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows I didn't remember falling asleep in front of. For a disorienting moment, I thought I was back in my small studio apartment in Chicago, the one with the water-stained ceiling and the radiator that clanked at 3 a.m. Then I registered the Egyptian cotton sheets, the weight of the duvet, the faint scent of expensive cologne lingering in the air. Wu Jin's penthouse, my cage, my fortress. I sat up slowly, my body aching in places I didn't know could ache, from a simple sprint through the rain. But it hadn't been simple, had it? I'd been running from my brother who wasn't my brother. Running toward a husband I didn't remember. The bedroom door was cracked open. I hadn't left it that way. Through the gap, I could smell coffee. Dark roast, the kind that tasted like burnt silk, and something sweet. Pastries, maybe. I found clothes laid out on the chair near the window. Not the leather and silk from the closet, but simple jeans and a soft gray t-shirt. A note rested on top in sharp, precise handwriting. "These might feel more familiar. I'll be in the office. Help yourself to breakfast. W." The consideration in the gesture made something uncomfortable twist in my chest. He was trying, giving me space while still caring for me. It would be easier if he were a monster. If he'd locked me in this room and demanded submission. But this careful courtesy, this respect despite his declared ownership, was more dangerous than any cage. I dressed and ventured out into the living area. The coffee was still hot in an expensive machine I didn't know how to operate. But next to it sat a simple French press, already prepared, still steeping. He'd thought of that. Known that whatever skills the ghost had possessed, operating luxury appliances might not be among them. Pastries sat under a glass dome. Croissants, pain au chocolat, something that looked like it had custard inside. My stomach growled, betraying how little I'd eaten in the past 24 hours. I poured coffee, selected a croissant, and explored. The penthouse in daylight was different. Less fortress, more gallery. Art hung on every wall. Some pieces I recognized as famous. Others I didn't but suspected were equally valuable. A Basquiat, a Kusama, several pieces that looked like they might be original Su Duho installations. And everywhere, woven into the collection, were her pieces, my pieces. Charcoal drawings framed with the same care as the million-dollar paintings. I, had been good, really good. The sketches captured not just likeness but essence. A study of hands showed not just anatomy but emotion, tension, tenderness, violence. I found myself drawn to a hallway I hadn't explored the night before. At the end sat a door different from the others, heavier, with a lock that looked complex. I knew I shouldn't. Wu Jin had given me space, freedom within this gilded prison. Violating his privacy would be wrong, but my hands were already moving, and that should have been my first clue. I crouched in front of the lock, studying it. A standard pin tumbler, nothing fancy. I needed something thin, something with tension. I went to the kitchen, found a drawer that might hold tools, and there, almost like he'd left them for me, were a tension wrench and a pick. My hands knew what to do. My fingers moved with muscle memory I didn't consciously possess, manipulating the pins with practiced ease. The lock clicked open in under 30 seconds. I sat back on my heels, staring at my hands like they belonged to someone else. Because they did. They belonged to the ghost. The door swung open silently, and I stepped into a room that stopped my breath. It was a shrine, but not the creepy kind with photos plastered on walls and obsessive notes. This was a curated collection of her. My life. Vinyl records lined floor-to-ceiling shelves, hundreds of them, organized by some system I'd have to examine to understand. A record player sat on a table near the window, expensive, vintage, the kind audiophiles paid thousands for. But it was the walls that destroyed me. They were covered in sketches. Not just displayed, covering every inch of space, cityscapes and portraits and abstract forms. And in the corner, a drafting table with fresh charcoal and paper, as though waiting for her to return, waiting for me to remember. I moved through the space in a daze, touching nothing but cataloging everything. The records were mostly jazz. Underground artists I'd never heard of mixed with legends like Coltrane and Monk. A journal sat on the table, and when I opened it, I found entries in handwriting I didn't recognize but somehow knew was mine. April 3rd, Wu Jin said the Kozlov contract could wait until after my exhibition. I told him business doesn't stop for art. He said I was wrong. That art was the only business that mattered. He's so fucking dramatic. I love him so much it terrifies me. My hands shook as I turned pages. More entries. Fragments of a life I'd lived and lost. June 18th. The Tokyo job went sideways. I had to improvise. Wu Jin was furious until I showed him the take. Then he was furious about the risks I took. We fought, then we fucked, the usual. September 2nd. I found something I shouldn't have. Evidence in Father Kim's office. I don't know what to do. If I tell Wu Jin, it will destroy him. If I don't, it will destroy everything we've built. The entries stopped after that date. 2 days later, according to what Wu Jin had told me, I'd disappeared. A sound behind me made me spin. Wu Jin stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. He'd changed into a suit, charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, and looked every inch the crime lord. But his eyes were soft, careful. I heard the lock, he said quietly. You still remember how to pick them? I didn't know I did, I admitted. My hands just moved. He stepped into the room, and I should have felt trapped, but I didn't. He moved to the record player, his fingers trailing over the albums with reverence. You collected these for years. Before we met even. You said jazz was the only music that understood that beauty and violence could coexist. He selected a record, sliding it from its sleeve with practiced care. This one was your favorite. He placed it on the turntable, set the needle with gentle precision. The speakers crackled, and then music filled the room. Piano, melancholy and complex. A woman's voice, singing in a language I didn't understand but felt in my bones. Nina Simone, Woojin said. Strange fruit. The song washed over me, and with it came a flash. Sitting on a fire escape in summer heat, this music playing from an open window, hands sketching the skyline while someone watched. The feeling of being seen, being known. I remember this, I whispered. Woojin went very still. What do you remember? Not everything. Just a moment. Drawing. This song. Being happy. I looked at him, and tears I didn't understand were streaming down my face. Was I happy? Before? You were brilliant, he said, his voice rough. You were terrifying and brilliant and so alive it hurt to look at you sometimes. He took a step closer. And yes, I think you were happy. We both were. Why didn't you tell me about this room? Because I wanted you to find it yourself. I wanted to see if you, were still in there. If the instincts were still intact. His smile was small, sad. You picked that lock in under a minute. The ghost is still there, Maya. Just sleeping. I moved to the drafting table, running my fingers over the charcoal. What if I don't want to wake her up? What if I like being ordinary? You were never ordinary. He was behind me now, close enough that I could feel his heat but not touching. Not even when you were trying to be. You organized your coffee shop sketches by the golden ratio. You instinctively sat with your back to walls and eyes on exits. You couldn't help being extraordinary. It's woven into your DNA. I picked up a piece of charcoal, feeling its weight. Show me something. What do you want to see? I want to see what she saw. When she looked at you, understanding flickered in his eyes. He moved to stand in the light from the window, and without a word, he began unbuttoning his shirt. What are you doing? You asked to see what she saw. He slid the shirt off, and I stopped breathing. Tattoos covered him. Not just his arms, but his chest, his back, his ribs. Dragons and tigers and phoenixes, rendered in black and gray, and hints of crimson. Every inch of skin told a story of violence and survival. Scars interrupted the ink. Bullet wounds, knife wounds. The roadmap of a life lived on the edge of death. She sketched every one of these, Woojin said quietly. She'd trace them with her fingers first, learning the paths. Then she'd draw. She said she was memorizing me, making sure that even if everything else burned, she'd be able to reconstruct me from memory. I moved toward him without conscious thought, charcoal still in my hand. May I? He nodded, not trusting his voice. I reached out slowly, and my fingertips made contact with the dragon that coiled across his ribs. His sharp intake of breath made me pause, but he didn't pull away. I traced the scales, and my hand knew the pattern. Knew where it started and ended. Knew the story it told. My other hand lifted the charcoal to paper, and I began to draw. The world narrowed to this. The sensation of his skin under my fingers, the scratch of charcoal on paper, the music still playing, Nina Simone's voice wrapping around us like a spell. I drew the dragon, then the phoenix on his shoulder, the tiger across his heart. My hands moved faster, more confident, and I wasn't Maya Morrison anymore. I was something else. Someone else. When I stepped back, the paper was covered in fragments of him, and they were good, professional. The work of someone who'd spent years studying her subject with obsessive devotion. Woojin looked at the sketches, and something broke in his expression. You remember? No, I said. But she does. She's in my hands, in my fingers. Even if my mind doesn't remember, my body does. He crossed the space between us, and this time when he touched my face, I leaned into it. His thumb traced my cheekbone, and my eyes fluttered closed. Tell me something true, I whispered. I waited 3 years to touch you again, he said, his voice raw. Every day, I told myself if I could just find you, just see you one more time. I could let you go if that's what you needed, but I was lying to myself. His forehead pressed against mine, his breath warm against my lips. I will never let you go. Never. I will remake the world before I lose you again. That's obsession. Yes. That's terrifying. Yes. I should run. You could try. His lips curved against my skin. But your body would betray you. It already knows where it belongs. He was right. I could feel it in the way my pulse slowed in his presence, the way my breathing synced to his, the way every cell in my body screamed home when he touched me. "This is insane," I said. "I know. I don't even know you. You know me better than anyone ever has. You just don't remember it yet." The music swelled, piano and voice building to something heartbreaking and beautiful. Woojin's hand slid into my hair, cradling my skull with devastating gentleness. "I won't kiss you," he said. "Not until you remember why you married me. Not until you choose me with full knowledge of who I am and what that means." Disappointment and relief warred in my chest. What if I never remember? Then I will court you. I will make you fall in love with me again. I will do whatever it takes for as long as it takes. His smile was small but real. "I can be patient when the prize is worth it. And Maya, you have always been worth everything." I pulled back, needing space, needing air. "I need to know more. About her, about us, about what happened, then ask." He retrieved his shirt, slipping it back on with fluid grace. "I will tell you anything you want to know. The evidence I stole, what happened to it." His expression went carefully neutral. "You hid it somewhere before the memory wipe. You left yourself clues, but they were encrypted. We've been trying to decipher them for 3 years. I have people, specialists, the best in the world." He buttoned his shirt with precise movements. "But you were better. You knew how your own mind worked. You left clues that only you could interpret. Do you have them, the clues?" He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "In my office. I was looking at them this morning, actually, hoping your return might help unlock them." "Show me." "Are you sure? Once you see them, once you start down this path, there's no going back. You'll either remember everything, or you'll have to live with the knowledge that you might never." I looked at the sketches scattered across the drafting table, at the evidence of a woman who'd loved so deeply she documented every inch of her husband's skin, who'd been willing to erase herself to protect him. "Show me," I repeated. "I need to know who she was, because I think—" I stopped, swallowed. "I think I might need to become her again, to survive this." Woojin's smile was proud, fierce. "There she is. There's my ghost." And for the first time since I'd crashed into the Onyx Lounge, I felt something other than fear. I felt purpose, direction. I felt like waking up. Woojin's office was exactly what I'd expected, and nothing like it at the same time. The room occupied an entire corner of the penthouse, glass walls offering views of the city in 2 directions. But unlike the rest of the space, this room was a fortress. I could see the seams where blast panels could drop, the subtle reinforcement in the glass that spoke of bulletproofing. This was where he made decisions that shaped the criminal underworld. A massive desk dominated the center, dark wood that looked like it had been carved from a single tree. Multiple monitors displayed information I didn't understand. Security feeds, stock tickers, what looked like shipping manifests in multiple languages. But it was the wall behind the desk that made my breath catch. Every surface was covered in papers, photos, maps. Red string connected various points in a pattern that looked like a madman's conspiracy theory but felt somehow methodical, purposeful. "This is my obsession," Woojin said quietly, gesturing to the wall. 3 years of trying to find you, trying to decipher what you left behind." I moved closer, studying the collection. Photos of me, of Maya Morrison, in various cities. Chicago, Seattle, Portland. Always alone, always cautious. Security footage stills showing me in coffee shops, libraries, grocery stores, living a life so ordinary it had to be deliberate. "You've been watching me," I said. "Not an accusation, just a fact. For the last 8 months. Once I confirmed you were alive, I had to be sure you were safe, that no one else had found you." He stood beside me, close enough that I could feel his heat. "Every day I wanted to approach you, to talk to you, but I knew you wouldn't remember me, knew you'd run, so you orchestrated the entire confrontation with Elias." "Yes, that's—" I stopped, searching for the right word. Terrifying, controlling, manipulative. "Yes." I turned to face him. "Why aren't you denying it, trying to justify it?" "Because you deserve the truth. All of it." His dark eyes held mine. "I am a criminal, Maya. I run one of the most powerful syndicates on the eastern seaboard. I traffic in violence and fear. I have killed more people than I can count, and I would burn the entire city to ash if it meant keeping you safe." He took a step closer. I am not a good man. I have never pretended to be. But I am your man, and I will do whatever it takes to protect what's mine. The possessiveness in his voice should have terrified me, should have sent me running. But instead, it sent heat pooling low in my belly. Show me the clues, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. He moved to the large Basquiat painting on the far wall, swinging the heavy frame aside to reveal a safe built into the concrete, the kind that required fingerprint, retina scan, and a code. Inside was a box. Small. Metal. When he opened it, I saw a USB drive and a single piece of paper. "This is what you left for yourself," he said, handing me the paper. The handwriting was mine. The same as in the journal. But the message was coded. Numbers and symbols that made no sense at first glance. 38.8977 degrees N, 77.036, 5 degrees W. The dragon sleeps where the phoenix once burned. Remember the vinyl in reverse. Track 3, Side B, 247. My head throbbed. The familiar ache that had plagued me for months intensified, and I swayed. Woojin caught me immediately, his arm solid around my waist. "Easy. Your brain is fighting the blocks. Don't push too hard." "The coordinates," I managed. "There. I know them. I don't know how, but I know them. Washington, D.C., specifically a location near the Capitol. But we've searched it dozens of times. There's nothing there. The dragon sleeps where the phoenix once burned," I repeated. My free hand lifted to the tattoo on his neck, tracing the dragon's head. "This dragon. Your dragon. The phoenix was my father's symbol," Woojin said quietly. "Before he died. Before I killed him. He had a phoenix tattooed over his heart. Did he have properties? Safe houses? Hundreds. All of them searched." I looked at the USB drive. "What's on this?" "Encrypted files. Even our best cryptographers can't crack them. They require a password we don't have." The vinyl in reverse. Track 3. Side B, 247. The words tumbled from my lips before I'd consciously thought them. Nina Simone. Strange Fruit. Track 3 on the B side, 2 minutes and 47 seconds into the song. Woojin's eyes widened. The record in the other room. We moved together, fast, back to the shrine room. The record was still on the turntable where he'd left it. He set the needle carefully, counting tracks, waiting for the right moment. At exactly 2 minutes and 47 seconds, Nina Simone held a note that seemed to stretch into infinity, and beneath it, barely audible, was something else. A voice. My voice. "The password is written on your skin. Count the scales on the dragon's tail. Each scale is a character. Read them in reverse, starting from the tip." The music continued, but we'd stopped listening. Woojin was already pulling off his shirt, turning to show me his back where the dragon's tail began at his lower spine. I moved closer, studying the tattoo. And there, so subtle I'd never have noticed if I wasn't looking, were tiny marks within each scale. Not imperfections in the ink. Letters. Numbers. Hidden in plain sight on the body of the man I'd loved. "You designed this piece," Woojin said, realization dawning. "You insisted on shading the dragon's tail yourself. You weren't just adding detail. You were writing the code in negative space. You knew I'd never suspect, that I'd never look there." My fingers traced the scales, counting. 27 in total, each one containing a single character. I grabbed paper and pen from the drafting table, writing them down in reverse order as the recording had instructed. When I finished, I had a string of characters that looked like gibberish but felt right, like something clicking into place. We returned to the office, Woojin pulling his shirt back on as we moved. He inserted the USB drive and brought up the encryption prompt. I typed the password with shaking hands. The files opened. There were thousands of documents, financial records, recordings, photos. But the first file that opened was a video, and the woman on screen was me, not Maya Morrison, the ghost. She sat in what looked like a hotel room, her expression calm but her eyes rimmed with red like she'd been crying. She wore leather pants and a black tank top, and her hair was longer. Wild. "Hello," she said to the camera, to me. "If you're watching this, it worked. They wiped your memories. You're probably terrified, probably confused, and you're probably with Woojin right now, listening to him try to explain the impossible." I sank into Woojin's desk chair, unable to tear my eyes from the screen. "I need you to understand something," the ghost continued. "Everything I did, I did to protect him. The man you're with, your husband, he is good. I know that sounds insane, given what he does, given who he is. But in a world of monsters, he is the one who tried to be better. For me, for us. Tears streamed down her. My face on the screen. I found evidence that his father was betraying the syndicate. Evidence that would force Woojin to kill his own blood. And I couldn't. I couldn't let him become that, the kind of man who'd murdered his father, even for good reason. So I made a deal with Elias. I'd disappear, take the evidence with me, erase myself. And in exchange, Woojin would never have to know the full extent of his father's betrayal. She laughed bitterly. I was so stupid. I didn't see that Elias was playing both sides, that he'd sell me out the moment it was profitable. The ghost leaned closer to the camera, her expression fierce. But I'm not stupid about this. The evidence on this drive will destroy the Choi clan. It will prove they were co-conspirators in Father Kim's treason. Use it. Burn them to the ground. And then, she stopped, swallowed hard. Then decide if you want to remember. There's a failsafe. Dr. Kim's notes on the memory wipe procedure. It can be reversed. But Maya, she used my name like a separate person. If you reverse it, you'll remember everything. The good and the horrible. The love and the violence. The woman you were and the things she did. She reached out, touched the camera lens like she could touch me through time. I loved him more than I thought it was possible to love anyone. And if you're watching this, it means he loved me enough to spend years finding me. That's worth something. That's worth everything. The video ended. Silence filled the office. Heavy, suffocating. I couldn't look at Woojin. Couldn't face the weight of what I'd just witnessed. You sacrificed yourself for me, he said finally. His voice wrecked. You loved me so much you erased yourself. She did, I corrected. She loved you. I don't even know you. Don't you? He moved into my line of sight, crouching in front of the chair so our eyes were level. Your body knows me. Your hands know me. Even without memories. You feel it. The pull between us. That's not enough, I whispered. Then let me make it enough. He took my hands, his touch gentle despite the calluses. Let me show you who we were, who we can be again. By using this evidence, by going to war with the Choi clan, by finishing what you started. His grip tightened. You gave me a gift 3 years ago. You tried to save me from becoming a kinslayer. But Maya, I killed my father anyway. The evidence came out through other channels. The council forced my hand. Your sacrifice was for nothing. Except it bought you 3 years without knowing the full truth, I said. 3 years without carrying the weight of his complete betrayal. 3 years without you, he countered. 3 years of half-living, searching, hoping. He stood, pulling me up with him. No more half measures. We end this, together. I'm not her, I said desperately. I don't know how to be the ghost. I don't know how to fight or steal or... Your body knows. He was walking now, pulling me with him through the penthouse to a door I hadn't noticed before. Let me show you. The door opened onto stairs leading down to the floor below. A fortress within a fortress. The architecture had been modified. The walls thickened with steel and concrete until the space felt subterranean. It was a bunker in the sky, a gun range. The walls were soundproofed and reinforced. Targets hung at various distances. A weapons locker held enough firearms to outfit a small army. This is insane, I breathed. Woojin unlocked the cabinet and withdrew a handgun. He checked it with practiced efficiency, ensuring it was unloaded, then held it out to me. Take it. I don't know how to. Take it, he repeated. My hand closed around the grip, and the world shifted. The weight was familiar, perfect. My fingers found the proper positions without conscious thought. My stance adjusted automatically, feet shoulder-width apart, knees slightly bent, weight balanced. Holy shit, I whispered. Muscle memory, Woojin said. Your brain might have been wiped, but your body wasn't. Load it. He handed me a magazine. Again, my hands knew what to do. The magazine slid home with a satisfying click. I chambered around, keeping the weapon pointed downrange. Fire when ready, Woojin instructed. I sighted down the barrel at a target maybe 20 feet away. Exhaled slowly. Squeezed the trigger. The shot was center mass. Perfect. I fired again. And again. Each shot finding its mark with precision that shouldn't be possible for someone who claimed not to know guns. When the magazine was empty, I lowered the weapon, hands shaking. I don't understand. You were trained, Wu Jin said simply. Years of training. Hundreds of hours on the range. Thousands of rounds fired. You can't erase that kind of conditioning with a simple memory wipe. He took the gun gently from my shaking hands and set it aside. Then he did something I didn't expect. He reached into the weapons cabinet and withdrew another gun. He checked it, loaded it, and pressed it to his own chest. Right over his heart, right where the phoenix tattoo had once been on his father's body. What are you doing? Panic spiked through me. Giving you a choice, he said calmly. You said you don't know me, don't trust me. So I'm giving you the power. If you truly believe I'm a monster, if you believe I'm keeping you here against your will for purely selfish reasons, pull the trigger. End this. The safety is off. One squeeze, and you're free. You're insane. I'm desperate. His eyes held mine, dark and infinite. I have waited 3 years, Maya. I have turned over every stone, explored every lead, refused every potential alliance that might have meant giving up the search. I have remained faithful to a woman who didn't remember me, who might never remember me. His free hand came up to cradle my face. So yes, I'm insane, but I'm yours. And I'm giving you the choice. Shoot me or trust me. My hands lifted to the gun. His finger moved to the trigger guard, ready. The metal was cold against my palms. I could kill you, I whispered. You could. You have the skill. I'm not wearing a vest. At this range, you wouldn't miss. Then why? Because you need to know you have power here. Real power. Not the illusion of choice, but actual control. His thumb stroked my cheekbone. I took your memories. I manipulated events to bring you here. I claimed you as property to keep you alive. But Maya, I will not keep you if you truly want to go. Even if it destroys me. The headache that had been building exploded into something catastrophic. Pain lanced through my skull, and with it came a memory. Not a flash. A full, vivid recollection. Standing in this same room. Wu Jin behind me, his arms around me, adjusting my grip, his breath warm against my ear. You're pulling left. Relax your shoulder. Me laughing. I'm perfect and you know it. Him turning me around, the gun clattering to the floor. You're perfect, and I love you, and if anything ever happened to you, I'd burn this city and everyone in it. Me kissing him. You're so dramatic. I love you too, you ridiculous man. The memory slammed into me with such force I gasped. The gun slipped from my hands. Wu Jin caught it smoothly, safing it before it could discharge, and I collapsed against his chest. I remembered. I sobbed into his shirt. Just one moment. But I remembered. His arms came around me, strong and solid and safe. Tell me, I told him. Every detail. The laughter and the love and the easy intimacy of two people who'd built a life together. When I finished, he was trembling. Do you believe me now? That what we had was real? I don't know what I believe, I admitted. But I know. I know I'm not leaving. Not yet. I need to remember more. I need to understand who she was, who we were. Then let me help you remember. He tilted my face up, his thumb tracing my lower lip. Your body knows me. Let it teach your mind. I don't. I'm not ready for. Not that, he said quickly. I told you. I won't touch you like that until you remember why you married me. But let me hold you. Let me trigger the muscle memories. Sometimes the body has to lead before the mind can follow. It was dangerous. I knew it was dangerous. But I was tired of fighting the pull. Tired of pretending my body didn't recognize him on some fundamental level. Okay, I whispered. He led me back upstairs, past the living area, to the bedroom, the massive bed that smelled like him. He lay down first, on his back, and held out a hand. I took it, let him pull me down beside him. And when he wrapped his arms around me, tucking me against his chest, my body melted into him like it had been waiting for this, for home. Tell me about us, I said into the darkness. Tell me everything. And he did. His voice low and rough, he told me about the night we met, the way I'd held a gun to his head and demanded entry to his private office, how I'd been there to steal financial records but had walked away with his heart instead. He told me about our wedding, how I'd refused a traditional ceremony and demanded we elope, how I'd worn red and he'd worn all black and the judge had looked terrified of us both. He told me about the jobs we'd run together, the near misses and the celebrations, the fights and the reconciliations, the life we'd built in the shadows. And as he spoke, more memories surfaced, fragments and flashes, the taste of his kiss, the sound of his laugh, the feeling of his hands on my skin. I fell asleep wrapped in his arms, in his voice, in the growing certainty that the woman I'd been had loved this man with a ferocity that transcended memory. And maybe, just maybe, I could love him again. In my dreams, the ghost smiled at me. And for the first time since I'd woken as Maya Morrison, I smiled back. I woke to the sound of my phone, vibrating against the nightstand. A phone I didn't remember owning until Woojin placed it there yesterday, preloaded with a single contact. His name glowed on the screen at 3 a.m, but when I reached for it, the notification showed a message from an unknown number. I know what he told you. I know what he showed you. But there are things he's keeping from you, Maya. Things about the child. Meet me at the old metro station on 5th. Come alone, or you'll never know the truth about what happened 3 years ago. My blood turned to ice. Child. The word sat in my chest like a stone, heavy and inexplicable. I looked at Woojin sleeping beside me, his face softened by vulnerability I'd only seen in these stolen hours of darkness. The dragon on his neck rose and fell with each breath, and my fingers ached to trace it again, to ground myself in the man who'd spent 3 years searching for a ghost. But doubt was a poison all its own. I slipped from the bed with the stealth my body remembered even if my mind didn't. The penthouse was silent, except for the distant hum of the city below, and I dressed in the dark. Jeans, a black sweater, boots that felt like they'd been made for running or fighting. In the entryway, I found Woojin's jacket draped over a chair. My fingers dipped into the pocket, closing around the heavy fob of his sedan, and I told myself I was just going to listen. I told myself I wasn't betraying the man who'd given me truth wrapped in violence and called it protection. The elevator descent felt like falling. The parking garage smelled of concrete and expensive machinery, and I chose the most inconspicuous vehicle, a black sedan that would surpass most people's houses in value, yet it didn't scream syndicate boss. The engine purred to life, and I was moving before I could second-guess myself. The city at this hour was a different creature. Neon bled into rain-slicked streets, and the few people I passed looked like shadows of themselves. Addicts, sex workers, the desperate and forgotten. The old metro station on 5th had been closed for renovations 2 years ago and never reopened, its entrance a gaping mouth of darkness that swallowed light and hope in equal measure. I parked 3 blocks away and walked the rest. My hands stayed in my pockets, fingers wrapped around the small canister of pepper spray I'd found in the sedan's glove box. Woojin's men would have guns, I realized, would have real weapons, but he'd given me this. Something I could hold without remembering how to kill. Elias waited under the broken streetlight at the station entrance, and for a moment, he looked like the brother I remembered. Rumpled clothes, haunted eyes, the man who'd supposedly raised me after our parents died in a car accident that never happened. But then he smiled, and it was all wrong. Too sharp, too knowing. You came, he said, and his voice carried none of the desperation from the Onyx Lounge. This was a man in control, a man who'd gotten exactly what he wanted. You said something about a child. I kept my distance, 10 feet between us, my weight balanced on the balls of my feet. Ready. What child, Elias? Our nephew. He pulled out his phone, and the screen's glow carved harsh shadows across his face. Your son, Kim Ji-ho, 2 years old, brown eyes like his mother, dark hair like his father, currently living under the name Marcus Webb in a foster home in Philadelphia. The world tilted. I saw the photo he held up, a toddler with my face and Woojin's solemn expression, playing with blocks in what looked like a daycare. My knees threatened to give out, but I locked them, forced steel into my spine. That's not possible. I would remember. You were 6 weeks pregnant when you decided to erase yourself. Elias pocketed the phone, and his smile widened. Dr. Kim advised against the procedure, said it could harm the fetus. But you were so determined to save your precious Woojin from his daddy issues that you went through with it anyway. The baby survived. You gave birth 4 months after the wipe, completely unaware you'd ever been pregnant in the first place. You're lying. But my hands were shaking. My body knew something my mind couldn't grasp. Am I? Ask yourself why you've been having phantom pains in your abdomen, why your body feels different in ways you can't name, why you avoid mirrors when you're changing. He took a step closer. Your subconscious remembers what was cut out of you, Maya. Both the memories and the child. If this is true, why didn't you tell me? Why hide him? Because he was my insurance policy. Another step. We were 5 feet apart now, close enough that I could smell the cigarettes on his breath. I sold you to the Choi clan, yes, but I kept one piece of leverage for myself. As long as I have access to Kim Woojin's heir, I have protection, power, a bargaining chip against both the syndicate and their rivals. The betrayal cut deeper than any knife. You used my child, for money and territory. I used the asset you created when you decided to play house with a crime lord. His mask finally dropped completely, and beneath it was something cold and calculating. Reptilian. You were supposed to stay docile, Maya. Stay Maya Morrison, the graphic designer. But then you started having dreams, started asking questions. Woojin's men started sniffing around. I had to accelerate the timeline. The stalking. You herding me to the Onyx Lounge. That was all. A transaction. Woojin wanted you back. I wanted certain guarantees. Financial, territorial. We made a deal. He gets his amnesiac wife. I get to walk away clean with enough money to disappear. His hand moved to his jacket, and every instinct I had screamed danger. But then you had to go and start remembering. Had to become a liability instead of an asset. I saw the gun before my mind could process what it meant. Saw it rise, the barrel finding center mass with the practiced ease of someone who'd done this before. Time slowed to amber, and in that crystalline moment, I remembered, not everything, not the full scope of 3 years erased, but I remembered this, standing in a kill room with Woojin behind me, his hands guiding mine, teaching me the angles that mattered. Never hesitate, Maya. The moment you see the weapon, you move. My body moved before thought could interfere. I dropped low and left, the pepper spray already out. I held my breath, firing a stream directly into his eyes before pivoting away from the mist. Elias's shot went wide. He stumbled back, clawing at his face, and I lunged from the side, clear of the fumes. My hand caught his wrist, twisted with leverage I didn't know I possessed, and the gun clattered away into darkness. You sold my son? The words came out in the ghost's voice. Cold, professional, lethal. You sold me. You tried to destroy everything I loved. He's a criminal. Elias's scream echoed off stone and steel. Woojin is a murderer, a monster, and you loved him so much you made yourself forget reality. No. I wrenched his arm harder. Felt something give with a wet pop that should have made me sick but only made me feel powerful. I made myself forget to save him from becoming his father. But you took that sacrifice and corrupted it, made it about profit. He didn't tell you everything? Elias gasped through pain and chemicals. Ask him about the council's deal. Ask him why they're really letting you live. Maya. The voice cut through the darkness like a blade. I turned, and Woojin stood at the entrance to the station, backlit by the broken streetlight. He wasn't alone. 4 of his men flanked him, weapons drawn but lowered, and the look on his face was something beyond fury, beyond betrayal. It was devastation. I woke up and you were gone. His voice was controlled, but I could hear the fractures beneath. I thought they'd taken you. I thought I'd lost you again. He told me about the child. I kept my grip on Elias, kept him pinned. About my son. Our son. Something cracked in Woojin's expression. Raw, exposed, gutted. I was going to tell you. Tonight. When you woke up, I got the DNA confirmation yesterday. I've been searching for him since I found you, Maya. I've been trying to bring him home. You knew? The words tasted like acid. You knew I had a child and you didn't tell me? I knew you were pregnant when you disappeared. I didn't know if... His voice broke. Actually broke. I didn't know if you'd kept him. If something had happened during the memory wipe. I've been looking for 3 years, and I only found him 3 weeks ago. I was verifying everything before you what? Decided I was stable enough to handle the truth? I released Elias with a shove that sent him sprawling. I'm not a child, Woojin. I'm not fragile. I deserve to know. You deserve to heal. The words exploded from him with a force that made his men shift uneasily. You deserved one moment of peace before I threw you into the hell of knowing your brother sold your son to strangers for money. The silence that followed was absolute. Even Elias had gone still, reading the room with the survival instinct of a rat. He's in Philadelphia? I asked finally, my voice steadier than I felt. Yes. A good home. Temporary foster placement with a family who doesn't know who he really is. Woojin took a step forward, then stopped himself. I have extraction plans ready. Legal adoption papers prepared under 4 different identities. I was going to ask you, tonight, if you wanted me to bring him home, or if you needed more time to remember being his mother. I don't need to remember. The words came from somewhere primal, somewhere the memory wipe had never touched. He's mine. Ours. We bring him home. Woojin's exhale was shaky relief. Then we bring him home. After, Elias interjected, and we both turned to look at him like we'd forgotten he existed. After you hear what the council really offered, what Wu Jin agreed to in exchange for claiming you. Elias, I strongly suggest you stop talking. Wu Jin's voice had gone soft, dangerous. She deserves the truth. Blood ran from Elias's nose, mixing with tears from the pepper spray. Tell her about the 5-year contract. Tell her about the breeding clause. The world stopped. What? It's not what he's implying. Wu Jin started. He agreed to produce 3 heirs for the syndicate within 5 years. Elias laughed bitterly. That's the price of the council's protection, Maya. You're not his wife. You're his broodmare. That's what personal property really means in their world. I looked at Wu Jin, searching his face for denial. Found only guilt. Is it true? The council required assurances. His words were careful, measured. Assurances that my claim on you was legitimate, that I wasn't just protecting a criminal for sentimental reasons. The contract stipulates that within 5 years, we provide heirs to solidify the alliance between my clan and if I refuse, my voice was ice. If I decide I don't want to be your breeding stock, then the contract is void and the protection ends. He met my eyes, unflinching. And 17 different contracts would come for you within 48 hours. So I have no choice. You have every choice, Maya. He moved closer despite his men's visible tension. If you want to run, I'll help you run. I'll give you new identities, new lives for you and Jiho. I'll dismantle every contract hunting you, even if it costs me everything. But if you stay, if you choose me, it has to be real. The council will know if it's performance. 3 heirs in 5 years. I laughed, and it sounded wrong even to my own ears. And one already exists. If I present Jiho to the council, prove his lineage predates the contract, they'll have to accept him as the first. Then I just need to give you 2 more? Don't. The word was quiet but absolute. Don't reduce what we had, what we could have again, to a transaction. But that's what it is, isn't it? That's what I am. A transaction dressed up in romance and destiny. I turned away, unable to look at him anymore, unable to see the truth in his face. Elias started to laugh, full-bodied, wheezing laughter that spoke of victory and madness in equal measure. See? You can't even deny it. The great Kim Woo-jin, who burned half the eastern seaboard to find his lost love, and it all comes down to a breeding contract and political necessity. Woo-jin's gun appeared so fast I barely registered the movement. The shot was precise, surgical, through Elias's shoulder, pinning him to the concrete. His laughter transformed into a scream. That, Woo-jin said softly, is for touching what's mine. He fired again. The bullet grazed Elias's ribs, a warning shot that tore skin but left him functional. Elias's scream doubled. That is for selling my son. Another shot, thigh. The screaming turned to sobbing. That is for 3 years of her pain. Stop. My voice cut through the violence. Woo-jin, stop. He turned to look at me, and the man I saw was the monster everyone feared. Cold, controlled, capable of infinite cruelty. He tried to kill you, Maya. He sold our child. He corrupted your sacrifice and made it about greed. Give me one reason I shouldn't paint these walls with him, because I want to do it. The words hung in the air between us. Woo-jin's eyes widened fractionally, surprise breaking through the mask. And then something else. Understanding, recognition. He handed me the gun. The weight was familiar. The warmth from his grip transferred to mine, and I understood that this was a test. Not of my capability. My body had already proven it remembered how to fight. This was a test of who I would become. If I'd stay Maya Morrison who painted in coffee shops, or if I'd embrace the ghost who'd loved a crime lord enough to erase herself for him. I walked to where Elias lay bleeding and crouched down to his level. He looked up at me through tears and pain, and for a moment, I saw the man who'd pretended to be my brother, the man who'd fabricated memories of teaching me to ride a bike, of protecting me after non-existent parents died, the man who'd sold a child for territory. You took everything from me, I said quietly. My memories, my identity, my son. You made me small and afraid and ordinary. But you know what? You failed. I pressed the barrel to his forehead, right between his eyes, because even without memories, even as Maya Morrison, I was never ordinary. I was just sleeping. Maya. His voice broke on my name. Please. I'm sorry. I was desperate. I was scared. You were greedy. I pulled back the hammer with my thumb. And now you get to see what the ghost does to people who threaten her family. For a heartbeat, I meant it. Every fiber of my being wanted to pull that trigger, wanted to paint the concrete with revenge and call it justice. But something Woojin had said echoed in my mind. Don't reduce what we had to a transaction. If I killed Elias here, in cold blood, I became the ghost fully. No more Maya Morrison. No more choice about who I wanted to be. I'd be the monster the council expected, the weapon Woojin needed, the killer my body remembered how to be. But I'd also be the mother my son needed to stay hidden from, the woman who couldn't separate love from violence. I lowered the gun. No. The word felt like surrender and victory at once. No, I'm not going to kill you. Because that's what you expect. That's what you've been telling yourself to make sense of this. That I'm a monster who'll just eliminate threats without conscience. But I'm not. I stood, my legs steady despite the adrenaline crash beginning to hit. I'm a mother who just found out her son exists. And I'm going to get him back. And you're going to help me. Elias's confusion was almost comical. What? You have access to the foster system. You have contacts, documentation. You're going to use all of it to expedite our legal claim on Jiho. I turned to Woojin, who watched me with an expression I couldn't fully read. And then, when our son is safe, Woojin can decide what happens to you. Because that's what partners do. They share decisions, even the violent ones. Woojin's smile was slow, predatory, and deeply proud. Practical and merciful. That's my ghost. I'm not your ghost. I handed him back the gun. I'm not Maya Morrison either. I'm something new. Something that remembers how to fight, but chooses when to kill. And right now, I choose to get my son back. He holstered the weapon and closed the distance between us in 2 strides. His hands cupped my face, and his kiss was not gentle. It was claiming, desperate, a brand that said mine in every language that mattered. When he pulled back, his forehead pressed against mine. 3 heirs in 5 years, he murmured. But not because of a contract, because I want a family with you. Because I want to watch you grow round with my children and know that this time, I get to be there. I get to protect you both. Sweet words for a crime lord. True words for my wife. He kissed me again, softer this time. I will annul the council's contract. I'll find another way to guarantee your protection. You are not livestock, Maya. You are going to agree to it anyway. I pulled back enough to see his face, to watch the shock register. But on my terms. We get Jiho back first. Then I decide if I want more children. And if I do, it's because I want a family. Not because some ancient criminals think they can dictate my womb. The council won't accept. The council will accept what I tell them to accept. I felt the ghost rising in my voice, sharpening my words to weapons. Because I have something they want more than heirs. I have the evidence that can destroy them. And I'm going to use it. The foster home in Philadelphia was painted a cheerful yellow that seemed obscene against the gray November sky. A tire swing hung from an oak tree in the front yard, swaying gently in the wind, and children's laughter filtered through the windows. Sounds of innocence that made my chest ache with something primal and terrifying. My son was behind those walls. The child I'd carried and given birth to, without any memory of the process. The ghost's legacy, grown into a toddler who knew nothing of his parents beyond whatever fabricated story Elias had provided. We wait for the signal. Woojin's voice was calm beside me, but his fingers drummed against the steering wheel of the rental car, a tell that most people wouldn't notice but I was beginning to recognize. Anxiety. Controlled but present. Marco is inside posing as a social services inspector. Once he verifies Jiho's identity and location within the house, we move. We should have just taken him. My hands clenched in my lap, nails digging into palms. Walked in there and taken what's ours. And traumatized him? Woojin's hand covered mine, stilling the violence. He's 2 years old, Maya. He doesn't know us. If we grab him like criminals, he'll be terrified. We do this legally, carefully. We become his parents, not his kidnappers. The logic was sound, but everything in me screamed to run into that house and gather my child into my arms. To verify he was real. That this wasn't another elaborate lie in a life constructed from falsehoods. What if he doesn't like me? The question escaped before I could stop it. Small and afraid in a way the ghost never was. What if he looks at me and knows I forgot him? Then we teach him to love us. Woojin's voice was certain, absolute. The same way I taught you to love me the first time, with patience and persistence and more attention than any sane person should give. You didn't teach me to love you. I just did. Then we trust that. He raised my hand to his lips, kissed my knuckles with reverence that felt like prayer. We trust that blood calls to blood, that some bonds exist beyond memory or reason. His phone buzzed. A text from Marco. Target verified. Northeast bedroom, second floor. Foster mother is cooperative. Proceed. Now? I was already reaching for the door handle. Now. Woojin's hand caught my arm, held me for one more moment. But Maya. Whatever happens in there, however he reacts, we walk out of this house with our son. Legal or not, peaceful or violent. Do you understand? I understood perfectly. Saw the same desperation in his eyes that I felt in my chest. We'd both lost too much already. There would be no losing this. The foster mother was exactly what I'd expected. Kind-faced, probably mid-50s. The type of woman who dedicated her life to caring for broken children. She met us at the door with Marco beside her, his fake credentials putting her at ease even as his eyes scanned for threats with professional paranoia. Mr. and Mrs. Kim? She smiled warmly, gesturing us inside. I'm Margaret Webb. I've been caring for Marcus, Jiho, for about 6 months now. Such a sweet boy. Quiet, very observant. Never cries, even when the other children are fussy. Never cries. The words hit me like a punch. What kind of trauma taught a 2-year-old not to cry? We'd like to see him. My voice came out steadier than I felt. Please. Margaret led us through a house that smelled like crayons and cookies, past walls covered in children's artwork and photos of smiling kids who'd passed through her care. A living room full of toys, a kitchen with a breakfast table set for 8. This was a good place, I realized. A safe place. And we were about to disrupt it, with violence and truth. The stairs creaked under our weight, and I could hear voices from above. A woman singing, off-key but tender, and a small voice attempting to echo her. My heart seized. He's with my assistant, Margaret explained. We were reading stories before nap time. She opened the door to a bedroom painted soft blue, with a crib in one corner and a toddler bed in the other. Stuffed animals lined shelves, and a mobile of stars hung from the ceiling. And there, sitting on the floor with a picture book, was my son. He had my skin, several shades darker than Woojin's, and my nose, but his eyes, those serious, ancient eyes, were pure Kim. His hair was black silk, slightly curly, and he wore tiny jeans and a sweater with a dinosaur on it. He looked up when we entered, and his gaze went immediately to Woojin. Not me. Woojin. I watched something extraordinary happen on my husband's face. Every line of careful control dissolved into naked emotion. Love and grief and joy so profound it looked like pain. He dropped to one knee, making himself small, unthreatening, and extended a hand. Jiho, he said softly, and the name sounded like prayer. Do you know who I am? The boy studied him with that unnerving intensity, then looked at me. His small face scrunched in concentration, and he said one word, in Korean. Aoma? Mother. My knees gave out. I hit the floor beside Woojin, tears I couldn't control streaming down my face, and I nodded. Yes, baby, I'm your Ioma. How does he know? Margaret's voice was confused, concerned. He's never spoken Korean. We didn't even know he... Blood memory. Marco's voice cut through, cold and professional. Some things exist beyond language, beyond conscious thought. Jiho tilted his head, studying me with those old eyes, then slowly, carefully, reached out a tiny hand and touched my face. His fingers traced my cheekbone, and I saw him recognize the gesture, saw him remember, the way my body had remembered Woojin's touch. Ioma, he said again, certain this time. I gathered him into my arms, and he came willingly, wrapped small arms around my neck and buried his face against my shoulder, and I felt something inside me click into place. A piece I hadn't known was missing until it returned. I'm sorry, I whispered into his hair. I'm so sorry I forgot you. I'm so sorry I left you. But I'm here now. We're here now, and we're never leaving you again. Mrs. Webb, Woojin's voice had gone formal, dangerous. We're taking Jiho home, today. You can cooperate and accept the legal documentation we've prepared, or this becomes complicated for everyone involved. Margaret's face paled. She looked at Marco, who'd subtly moved to block the doorway. This isn't. You can't just. We can. I stood, Jiho still in my arms, and faced her. I'm his biological mother. He was taken from me through illegal means. We have documentation proving paternity, proving I was coerced into giving him up while mentally incapacitated. You can call the police if you want, but I promise you, Mrs. Webb, the police who respond will be on our payroll, and then we'll have to do this the hard way. The boy, she whispered. Is he safe with you? The question hung in the air, heavy with implication. Was a crime lord and his amnesiac wife a safe home for a child? He's safer with us than anywhere else in the world, Woojin said. And there was no threat in it, just truth. We're his parents. We love him, and we have the resources to protect him from the people who wanted him as leverage. Margaret looked at Jiho, still clinging to me like he'd never let go. Looked at the way Woojin stood beside us, a unit already. Then she sighed, defeated and sad. The paperwork is downstairs. I'll need you to sign. The window exploded inward. Glass and wood shrapnel filled the air as 3 figures in tactical gear rappelled into the room. I registered weapons, saw muzzles tracking toward Woojin, and my body moved before thought. I twisted, putting myself between the threats and my family, and felt more than heard the first shot. Impact. High chest. Left side. The pain came secondary to the animal fury that erupted from somewhere primal. The ghost didn't just wake up. She exploded into existence. I shoved Jiho into Woojin's arms with one hand, while the other caught Margaret and pushed her behind Marco. My voice came out in Korean, rapid-fire commands. Get them to the safe room. Northwest corner, behind the bookshelf. Now. Marco moved immediately, grabbing Margaret and ushering them toward where I somehow knew an escape route existed. Woojin hesitated, his face twisted in horror as he registered my blood. Go, I screamed. Protect our son. He went, took Jiho and ran, because he understood in that moment that I was the most dangerous thing in this room, that the ghost wasn't a memory. She was muscle and instinct, and 3 years of compressed violence finally released. The tactical team had expected a civilian, expected fear and compliance. They got a wraith in a cashmere sweater who moved like liquid death. I grabbed the closest man's rifle barrel, twisted with leverage that snapped his trigger finger, and used his own momentum to send him through the already shattered window. His scream cut off suddenly 3 stories down. The second operative fired. Center mass. Should have been a killing shot. But I was already moving. The bullet passed through where I'd been, and I closed the distance in 3 steps. My palm strike caught his throat, crushing his windpipe, and as he dropped, I appropriated his weapon. The third operative was smart. Saw his partners fall in under 6 seconds, and decided on tactical retreat. He dove for the window, probably planning to rappel down. I shot him in both knees. He collapsed on the windowsill, screaming, and I was on him, one hand fisted in his tactical vest, dragging him back into the room. The other pressed his own pistol under his chin. Choi clan? I asked in Korean. Or council? Fuck you. I pulled the trigger, sending the bullet through soft palate and out the top of his skull. His body dropped, and I turned to assess the room with clinical precision. 2 dead, 1 dying outside. No additional threats visible. Extraction team would arrive in approximately 3 minutes. Woojin and Jiho were safe in the panic room Margaret had installed after a robbery 5 years ago. Information I shouldn't know but did, because I'd spotted the reinforced ventilation seam and keypad disguised as a thermostat in the hallway. The ghost's instincts didn't need memories. They just needed eyes. The pain in my chest finally registered. I looked down, saw blood spreading across my sweater, and pressed a hand to the wound. High and left. Probably missed the heart. Possibly clipped a lung. I could feel fluid building when I breathed. I had maybe 10 minutes before shock set in. The door opened. Woojin, alone, his face carved from terror and fury. Marco has them. Are you? He saw the blood. Saw the way I swayed. No, Maya, no. Just a scratch. My voice sounded distant even to myself. Got him first. You took a bullet for me. He was beside me, hands assessing the wound with practiced efficiency. You stepped in front of. Why would you? Because you were holding our son. The words came out slurred, shock arriving faster than anticipated. Couldn't let him see you die. Couldn't let him. Shut up. Save your strength. Woojin ripped his shirt open, buttons scattering, and pressed the fabric against my wound. The pressure made me gasp. Marco. We need the car, now. Hospital. No hospital. I caught his wrist with bloody fingers. Council controls hospitals. They'll finish it. Take me. Take me to the safe house. The one in Fishtown. Doctor. Yoon will come. He owes you. Dr. Yoon is a veterinarian. Was a combat medic. I vetted him 3 years ago. He's clean. He's safe. I coughed, tasted copper, definitely clipped a lung. Trust the ghost, Woojin. She knew this might happen. She prepared. His eyes searched mine, and I saw the moment he understood. The ghost hadn't just left clues about evidence. She'd left contingencies for violence, escape routes and safe doctors and weapons caches. She'd known that loving Kim Woojin meant living in danger, and she'd prepared accordingly. I'm not losing you again. His voice broke on the words. I just got you back. We just got him back. You don't get to die now. You don't get to leave me. Not planning on it. The room was getting dimmer, edges going soft. But Woojin, if I don't make it, don't. Listen. I forced the words through the fog. The dead man's switch. I set a timer before we left. If I don't enter the fail-safe code within 4 hours, the files we unlocked go public automatically. Tell the council. Tell them the timer is ticking. That killing me ensures the upload completes. Maya. And tell Jiho. My voice cracked. Tell him his Ioma fought to come home to him. That she loved him even when she couldn't remember him. That you're going to tell him yourself. Woojin lifted me, cradling me against his chest like I weighed nothing. Because you're not dying today. I won't allow it. The last thing I saw before darkness claimed me was his face above mine. Desperate, furious, devastated. The face of a man who'd spent 3 years searching for his ghost and wasn't about to let death steal her again. I wanted to tell him I loved him, that I remembered now. Not everything, but enough. Enough to know that what we had was worth fighting for, worth dying for. But the darkness swallowed the words before they could form, and I fell. I woke to the sound of classical music, something soft and melancholy that felt like morning. The ceiling above me was unfamiliar plaster, water-stained and cracked, nothing like the pristine luxury of Woojin's penthouse. Pain radiated from my left chest, sharp and insistent, but manageable, controlled. I was alive. Don't move. The voice came from my right. I turned my head carefully and found Dr. Yoon sitting in a folding chair, reading a medical journal by lamplight. He was younger than I'd expected, maybe 40, with salt and pepper hair, and the kind of tired eyes that spoke of too many years seeing suffering. The bullet missed your heart by 2 centimeters, he said without looking up from his reading. Deflected off the rib, tore through the pectoral muscle, and exited clean. No organ damage, but you lost a lot of blood. You should be dead. Sorry to disappoint. That got him to look up. His expression was carefully neutral, professional. You're not disappointing anyone, Mrs. Kim, least of all your husband. He's been... Doctor. Yoon paused, choosing words carefully. Intense. About your recovery. Where is he? Handling the aftermath of the Philadelphia incident. 3 dead. 1 critically injured. The foster home had to be sanitized. The Choi clan is denying involvement, which means they're preparing for retaliation. And your son, Jiho, is with a nanny at a secondary safe house. He's safe. Asking for his Ioma. The last part made my chest ache worse than the bullet wound. How long have I been out? 36 hours. I kept you sedated while the worst of the healing occurred. You're stable now, but you'll need at least a week of rest before. I need to be up in 2 hours. Dr. Yoon's eyebrows rose. Mrs. Kim, I just explained that you were shot in the chest, and I explained that I need to be up in 2 hours. I pushed myself into a sitting position, gritting my teeth against the pain that lanced through my torso. The Choi clan tried to kill me in front of my son. They sent a tactical team to a foster home full of children. They need to understand what happens when you threaten a ghost's family. You're in no condition to. Get me upright, doctor, or get out of my way. He studied me for a long moment, then sighed the sigh of a man who knew a losing battle when he saw one. You're as stubborn as your husband said. Fine, but I'm wrapping that wound twice as tight, and you're wearing a ballistic-grade silk liner under whatever designer violence you're planning. It won't stop a rifle, but it might stop a knife. 2 hours later, I stood in front of a mirror in the safe house's makeshift dressing room and barely recognized the woman staring back. The ghost hadn't just returned. She'd evolved. The red dress was pure psychological warfare. The crimson silk that clung to curves the memory wipe hadn't erased. With a high neck that covered the bandages, Doctor Yoon had wrapped around my chest. Long sleeves hid the IV bruises and the fresh scars. The skirt ended just above my knees, modest enough to appear professional but cut to allow movement, to allow violence if necessary. Black heels added 3 inches to my height. Louboutins. because the ghost had always believed in fighting in expensive shoes. My hair, usually worn in simple curls, had been styled into something sleek and severe. And makeup. Not the casual everyday sort, but theatrical, dramatic. A mask that said, "I am not prey, I am predator." I looked like a queen preparing for war. The door opened, and Woojin entered, stopping dead when he saw me. He'd changed as well. A three-piece black suit that could easily be worth more than a car, his hair styled back, every inch the crime lord. But his eyes, when they met mine, held something beyond appreciation. They held worship. "You should be in bed," he said, voice rough. "I should be dead." I turned from the mirror to face him. The Choi clan made their move. Now I make mine. Maya, don't. I closed the distance between us, my heels clicking on the scarred wooden floor. Don't tell me to rest. Don't tell me to let you handle this. I'm the one they tried to kill. I'm the one whose son was used as bait. This ends tonight. With me. You can barely stand upright. I can stand long enough to watch them kneel. Woojin's jaw clenched. The council meeting is in 1 hour. Neutral ground, the Prometheus Club downtown. Every major clan will be represented. If you walk in there wounded, they'll see weakness. If I walk in there at all, they'll see resurrection. I touched his face, feeling the tension in his jaw. They thought they killed the ghost 3 years ago, when I erased myself. Thought they could use the evidence I stole as leverage to control you, control the syndicate. But I'm not dead, Woojin. I'm not even hiding anymore. And tonight, they learn what happens when you make a ghost angry. What's the play? The truth. I moved to the table where Marco had laid out the evidence, the USB drive, printed documents, and a tablet loaded with video files. All of it. Every ugly secret about Father Kim's betrayal, the Choi clan's complicity, the council's corruption. I'm going to burn it all down. They'll kill you for that. The moment you walk out of that meeting, every contractor from here to Hong Kong will have your name. Then you'll have to make sure they never get the chance. I gathered the materials, slipping them into a leather portfolio that looked professional, but had been reinforced with Kevlar. I'm not the woman who ran into the Onyx Lounge a week ago, terrified and hunted. That woman was a ghost of a ghost. But the real ghost is awake now, and she's very, very angry. Woojin pulled me into his arms, carefully, mindful of my wounds, and pressed his forehead to mine. I wish you'd let me do this for you. I wish you'd stay safe. Safe is boring. I kissed him, tasting the fear and pride in equal measure. And I didn't marry you to be safe. I married you to be dangerous together. The Prometheus Club occupied the top 3 floors of a skyscraper in downtown Philadelphia, and approaching it felt like entering a temple dedicated to expensive sin. The elevator required a keycard and biometric scan, and the interior was all black marble and gold fixtures that screamed old money and older violence. Woojin's men flanked us. Marco and 3 others whose names I was still learning. They looked like corporate security, but I could see the telltale bulges of concealed weapons, the way they moved with military precision. Last chance to turn back, Woojin murmured as the elevator climbed. Not even if God himself asked nicely. The doors opened onto a space that looked like a luxury hotel lobby had a baby with a fortress. Leather seating areas, low lighting, abstract art, but the windows were bulletproof, the walls reinforced, and every smiling hostess was armed. A man in an expensive suit approached. Korean, late 50s, with the kind of face that looked friendly until you saw his eyes. Kim Woojin. The council wasn't expecting you to bring your wife. The council doesn't dictate my movements, Chairman Pak. Woojin's voice was cold, formal. My wife has information relevant to tonight's discussion. Chairman Pak's gaze slid to me, assessing. I let him look. Let him see the red dress and the expensive shoes and the portfolio clutched in my hands. Let him wonder what kind of woman walked into a council meeting less than 2 days after taking a bullet. The ghost, he said finally, recognition dawning in his eyes. We thought you were dead, a casualty of your own husband's ambition. Myths don't bleed. I smiled, and it was the ghost's smile, all sharp edges and promises of violence. But I'm happy to demonstrate that I'm very, very real. He gestured toward a set of double doors. The council is waiting. The council room was circular, with a massive table at the center and high-backed chairs arranged around it, 11 seats, 1 for each major clan represented in the Eastern Seaboard syndicate hierarchy. Most were already occupied. I recognized faces from the files I'd been studying obsessively for days. Chairman Pak of the Soul faction, Madame Choi of the clan that had tried to kill me, Viktor Kozlov of the Russian Partnership, Maria Santos of the Latin American Alliance, and others, Japanese, Chinese, Vietnamese. All the powers who'd carved up the criminal underground into territories and treaties. They all turned to stare when we entered. "This is a council meeting," Madame Choi said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. She was beautiful in the way expensive plastic surgery could make you beautiful, ageless and cold. "Wives are not invited." "Wives aren't." I moved to the center of the table, setting down my portfolio with deliberate care. "But creditors are, and you all owe me a debt you've been trying to kill rather than pay." Silence, absolute and dangerous. 3 years ago, I continued, my voice clear and steady despite the fire in my chest. I stole evidence that proved Kim Woojin's father was betraying the syndicate. I disappeared to protect my husband from having to execute his own blood. But while I was gone, you vultures picked the corpse clean, used my sacrifice as leverage to extract concessions from Woojin, to weaken his position, to treat the woman he loved like she was already dead. "We don't know what you're talking about." But Madame Choi's voice had gone brittle. "Don't you?" I opened the portfolio, began laying out documents. "Let me refresh your memory." Bank transfers showing the Choi clan receiving payments from Father Kim in exchange for allowing his embezzlement. Recorded conversations where Chairman Pak and Father Kim discuss eliminating Woojin once he became inconvenient. Photographs of council members at meetings that never officially occurred, dividing up assets that didn't belong to them. The room had gone deadly still. "You see," I said softly, "the ghost didn't just steal evidence of one man's betrayal. She stole evidence of systemic corruption, of a council that talks about honor and tradition, while selling out their own people for profit. And she kept it hidden for 3 years, a nuclear option in case she ever needed leverage. This is a bluff." Madame Choi stood, her composure cracking. "You have nothing that can." I pressed play on the tablet. Her voice filled the room, crystal clear. "Kill the girl. Make it look like an accident. Once she's dead, we can pressure Kim Woojin into accepting our terms for the merger. He'll be too grief-stricken to fight." The date stamp on the video was 2 weeks after I'd disappeared. While Woojin had been tearing the city apart looking for me, his supposed allies had been planning my murder. "Still think it's a bluff?" Madame Choi's face had gone white. Around the table, other council members shifted uncomfortably, calculating how much damage this evidence could do if released. "What do you want?" Chairman Pak's voice was carefully controlled. "Money? Territory? Name your price for those files." "I don't want money." I gathered the documents, returned them to the portfolio. "I want accountability. I want Madame Choi expelled from the council for attempted assassination of a protected asset. I want reparations paid to Kim Woojin for 3 years of destabilization. And I want the breeding contract annulled. The breeding contract ensures your protection." Madame Choi's voice rose to a shriek. "Without it, you're just another criminal we can eliminate." "Without it," I corrected. "I'm Kim Woojin's wife. Not his broodmare. Not his possession. His partner. And under syndicate law, a partner has equal standing to make claims and demands." I looked at Woojin, saw the fierce pride in his eyes. "My husband has been operating at half strength for 3 years because you held my life hostage. That ends tonight. And if we refuse your terms?" Viktor Kozlov spoke for the first time, his accent thick. "If we decide you're too dangerous to let live, then I release everything." I held up the tablet. "Every file, every recording, every piece of dirty laundry the council has been hiding for the last decade. I send it to the FBI, the DEA, Interpol, and about 40 different journalists who'd love a Pulitzer for exposing the criminal underground. By tomorrow morning, none of you will be able to operate. Your assets will be frozen, your networks exposed, your entire empires collapsed. That would destroy you too," Madame Choi hissed. "I died 3 years ago when I erased my memories to save my husband." I smiled, and it was the saddest, most terrifying expression I'd ever worn. You can't threaten a ghost with death, but you can make her angry, and an angry ghost burns everything down. The silence that followed was apocalyptic. Finally, Chairman Pak spoke. "What are your terms?" "All of them." I'd prepared this speech for days, rehearsed every word while Dr. Yoon changed my bandages. Now I delivered it with the precision of a closing argument. 1. Madame Choi is removed from the council effective immediately. Her territories are absorbed by the Kim clan as reparation for attempted murder. 2. The breeding contract is annulled. My children, current and future, are mine and Woojin's business. The council has no claim on our family. 3. A formal acknowledgement that I, the ghost, have equal standing in the Kim clan. My word carries the same weight as my husband's. My decisions are his decisions. 4. All outstanding contracts on my life are cancelled with extreme prejudice. Any contractor who attempts to collect forfeits their life and their clan's protection. 5. The evidence remains sealed in a dead man's switch. If anything happens to me, my husband, or our son, everything goes public automatically. We call it the Prometheus Protocol. You get to keep your empires, but only if you keep us alive. I set the tablet down, met each council member's eyes in turn. Those are the terms. Non-negotiable. You have 60 seconds to vote. The room erupted. Madame Choi screaming about precedent and insubordination. Victor Kozlov laughing darkly at the audacity. Chairman Pak trying to restore order. It was chaos. And then Woo Jin stood. The room went silent. My wife has spoken, he said quietly. And I stand with her. Every demand, every term. If the council refuses, the Kim clan withdraws from the syndicate entirely. We take our territories, our resources, and our evidence, and we build our own empire on the ashes of yours. His hand found mine, squeezed gently. You made a mistake 3 years ago when you thought you could control me through her. You made a bigger mistake when you tried to kill her instead of accepting her partnership. Don't make a third mistake by underestimating her now. Chairman Pak looked around the table, reading the room with practiced ease. Then he sighed. All in favor of accepting the ghost's terms? 7 hands rose, grudging, angry, but raised. Opposed? Madame Choi and 3 loyalists. The motion passes. The ghost's terms are accepted. Chairman Pak's gaze fixed on me with something like respect. Welcome to the council, Mrs. Kim. Try not to burn it down on your first day. No promises. I gathered my portfolio, feeling the victory settle into my bones like armor. Pleasure doing business with you, gentlemen. Madame Choi. Pack your office. You have 24 hours before we begin seizing your assets. We turned to leave. Woojin's arm steady around my waist as the pain finally began to break through the adrenaline. Marco and the others fell into formation around us, a moving fortress of violence. Behind us, I heard Madame Choi's final scream. This isn't over. You think you've won, but the ghost has made enemies tonight that will haunt her forever. I paused at the door, looked back over my shoulder. Haunting is what ghosts do best. The elevator doors closed on her fury, and only when we were alone. Just Woojin and me in that descending box of steel and glass. Did I allow myself to collapse against him? I did it, I whispered into his chest. I walked in there wounded and terrified, and I made them submit. You were magnificent. His lips found my forehead, my temple, my cheek. You were a queen, my queen, our son. I managed through the pain that was becoming impossible to ignore. I need to see Jiho. Need to make sure he's safe. Waiting for us at the primary residence. Marco's wife is with him. She was a kindergarten teacher before she married into the family. He's been fed, bathed, and read 3 stories about dinosaurs. Dinosaurs. I laughed, and it hurt, but it was real. Our son likes dinosaurs. He likes you more. Woojin's voice was thick with emotion. When Marco showed him a picture of you and told him his Aoma was coming home soon, he slept with it clutched in his hands. You're his whole world, Maya. Even though he barely knows you. Even though blood calls to blood, I repeated, Doctor. Yoon's words. Some bonds exist beyond memory. Then let's go home. Woojin held me tighter as the elevator descended. Let's go be a family. The penthouse had been transformed. The minimal, masculine space I'd first seen was now scattered with the chaos of toddler life. Toys in the living room. A small table with child-sized chairs. Walls adorned with alphabet posters and colorful artwork. And sitting on the floor, building a tower of blocks with intense concentration, was Jiho. He looked up when we entered, and his face, that serious little face that looked so much like his father's, lit up with pure joy. Aoma! He abandoned the blocks and ran to me on small, uncertain legs. I dropped to my knees. Dr. Yoon was going to kill me for the sudden movement, and caught him. Gathered my son into my arms and held him like I'd never let go. I'm here, I whispered into his dark hair. Aoma is here, and I'm never leaving again. You were sick. His small hands patted my face, checking to make sure I was real. Marco's wife said you were sick. I was, but I'm better now. I pulled back enough to see his face, to memorize every feature. And you know what? I brought you home. This is where we live now. You, me, and Appa. I gestured to Woojin. Do you remember Appa? Jiho turned in my arms to study Woojin with that unnerving intensity. Then he held out his arms, asking without words to be held. Woojin took our son with hands that shook slightly, cradling him against his chest like he was made of glass and dreams. When he looked at me over Jiho's head, tears tracked down his face. Our family, he managed. We're finally a family. I stood, pain lancing through my chest, but manageable, and wrapped my arms around both of them, around my husband and my son, around the life I'd forgotten and fought to reclaim. The ghost died 3 years ago, I said softly, but Maya Kim is just being born. And for the first time in 3 years, the world felt right. 6 months later, the first snow fell on the city like forgiveness. I stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse, watching the flakes transform the urban landscape into something clean and new. Behind me, I could hear Jiho's laughter as Woojin chased him around the living room, both of them playing a game that involved dinosaur noises and dramatic deaths. My son was 3 now. His birthday had been last month, celebrated with a party that involved far too much cake and gifts from uncles, who were actually enforcers in designer suits. He'd grown 3 inches, learned to speak in full sentences, and developed his father's talent for making commands sound like suggestions. He also had nightmares sometimes, dreams of the time before, when he'd been moved from place to place, never knowing his parents, never understanding why he was different from the other children. But he was healing. We all were. Aoma. Jiho ran to me, wrapping small arms around my legs. Appa says we can go to the park if it stops snowing. Can we? Can we? I lifted him. He was getting heavy, solid in the way of children who were loved and fed and safe, and settled him on my hip. If Appa says so, but you have to wear your coat and your mittens. And my dinosaur hat. He bounced with excitement, the one with the spikes, especially the dinosaur hat. I kissed his forehead, still marveling at the fact that he was real, that this life was real. Woojin appeared behind us, wrapping his arms around us both. The dragon on his neck pressed against my shoulder, and I remembered tracing those scales in the dark, learning the map of his body all over again. How are you feeling? His hand drifted to my lower abdomen, pressing gently against the small swell that was barely visible under my sweater. Nauseous, tired, craving kimchi at inappropriate hours. I leaned back against his chest. So, pregnant. Definitely pregnant. We'd waited 6 months before trying. 6 months of healing and therapy and learning to be parents to Jiho. 6 months of rebuilding trust and remembering how to be partners. And then one night, tangled in sheets and each other, Woojin had looked at me and asked if I was ready. I'd said yes. Not because of a council contract that had been annulled. Not because of syndicate expectations or political necessity, but because I wanted to. Because I wanted to watch this man be a father again. Because Jiho asked every day if he could have a sibling. Because I was ready to create something beautiful out of the ashes of what we'd lost. Boy or girl, what do you think? Woojin's voice rumbled against my back. Does it matter? Not even a little bit. He kissed my temple. As long as they're healthy. As long as you're both healthy, we're both fine. I turned in his arms, careful not to jostle Jiho, who'd begun dozing on my shoulder. Dr. Yoon confirmed it yesterday. 12 weeks, due in June. And before you ask, no, I'm not stopping work. I wasn't going to suggest you stop. But his expression said otherwise. Liar. I kissed him softly. I've spent 6 months restructuring the Choi territories into something that doesn't rely on human trafficking and extortion. I'm not stopping now just because I'm growing a tiny human. The Choi territories had been my project since Madame Choi's exile. Woojin had given them to me as a wedding gift. A second wedding. This time one I actually remembered. Small ceremony. Just us and Jiho, and a handful of trusted people. I'd worn red again. He'd cried again. It had been perfect. And then I'd gotten to work. Turned out, the ghost's skills translated well to criminal enterprise management. I'd spent 6 months identifying the most profitable but least harmful operations, shutting down the human trafficking rings, rerouting the drug networks into harm reduction programs, making it hurt less, making it better. It would never be clean. This life would never be something I could explain at a PTA meeting or write about in a memoir. But it was ours, and we were making it count. The council meeting is in 2 hours, Woojin reminded me. Are you sure you're up for it? I'm pregnant. Not dying. I shifted Jiho to his arms. He took our son without question, cradling him with practiced ease. Besides, it's important. Marco's promotion to second needs to be ratified, and I have that new proposal about the shipping routes. You're terrifying when you talk business. You love it. I really do. He kissed me again, deeper this time, and I felt the familiar heat low in my belly. 6 months of relearning each other had taught me that pregnant or not, wounded or not, the chemistry between us was nuclear. Later, I promised against his lips. After the meeting, after Jiho's asleep, I'll show you exactly how terrifying I can be. The council meeting was in the penthouse now. Neutral ground had proven less neutral after the Prometheus Protocol revelation. Better to keep enemies close and allies closer, on our territory where we controlled every variable. I dressed carefully. A black suit tailored to accommodate my changing body, with a crimson blouse underneath. Red and black. The ghost's colors. My crown. The council members arrived in stages, each one more uncomfortable than the last about meeting in Kim territory. But they came, because refusing an invitation from the ghost and her wolf was tantamount to declaring war. Chairman Pak arrived first, as was his custom. He'd aged in 6 months, lines deeper, hair whiter, but his eyes were still sharp. "Mrs. Kim, you're glowing. Pregnancy will do that." I gestured to the conference table Woojin had installed in what used to be the record room. "Please sit. We have much to discuss." One by one, they filtered in. Victor Kozlov, Maria Santos, the heads of the Vietnamese and Japanese factions, 8 council members where there used to be 11. We'd consolidated power, absorbed the weak, made the syndicate leaner and more efficient, more dangerous. When everyone was seated, I remained standing. Power play. Make them look up. "Thank you all for coming," I began, my voice steady and clear. "We have 3 items on the agenda today. First, the ratification of Marco Cole's promotion to second in the Kim clan. Any objections?" Silence. Marco had proven himself 100 times over. No one would challenge his loyalty or capability. "Excellent. Second, the shipping route proposal. I'm suggesting we reroute 40% of our Pacific traffic through Vancouver instead of Seattle. Less DEA presence, better port security, and the Canadian authorities are more amenable to persuasion." I spent 20 minutes walking them through logistics, profit margins, risk assessments, watched their initial skepticism turn to grudging respect as the numbers proved themselves. "The motion passes," Chairman Pak said finally. "The Ghost's shipping routes are approved. Third item." I paused, meeting each pair of eyes around the table. "I'm pregnant, 12 weeks, due in June, and I want to make something very clear. This changes nothing about my position or my authority. I will continue managing the Choi territories. I will continue attending council meetings. I will continue being exactly who I've been for the last 6 months. Understood? Are congratulations in order?" Maria Santos asked carefully. "They are. But keep them brief. Sentimentality makes me nauseous." I allowed myself a small smile. "Any other business?" Victor raised a hand. "There's been chatter about the old contracts. Some of the independent operators are wondering if the Prometheus Protocol still stands now that you're—" He gestured vaguely at my abdomen. "Pregnant?" I finished for him. "Let me be extremely clear. The protocol isn't contingent on my physical condition. It's contingent on my survival. Kill me, and everything goes public. Try to kill me while I'm carrying Woojin's child, and the response will be apocalyptic. I'd suggest reminding your independent operators of that. Consider it done." "Good." I finally sat, my body grateful for the reprieve. "Then unless there's other business, we're adjourned." They filed out one by one, leaving respectful comments about the pregnancy and the shipping routes. When the door closed behind the last of them, I sagged in my chair. Woojin appeared immediately, bringing water and concern in equal measure. "That was too much. You should be resting." "I'm fine." But I drank the water gratefully. "Just tired. Growing a human is exhausting work. Come on." He helped me stand. "Jiho is with Marco's wife for another hour. Let me take care of you." He led me to the bedroom. Our bedroom now, no longer just his, and helped me out of the suit with gentle hands. Drew a bath with my favorite oils. Sat with me while I soaked, his fingers tracing idle patterns on my shoulder. "I keep thinking about 3 years ago," I said quietly. "About the woman who decided erasing herself was the only way to save you. And I wonder what she'd think of us now. She'd be proud." Woojin's hand moved to cup my face, turning me to look at him. She'd see that her sacrifice wasn't wasted, that we found each other anyway, that we're building something beautiful, something dangerous. Beauty and danger aren't mutually exclusive. He kissed me softly. "Just look at you, smooth talker. I have 6 months of practice." His hands slid into the water, mapping the changes in my body with reverent attention. You're so beautiful like this. Fierce and soft at the same time. Keep talking like that and we won't make it to the bed. Is that a challenge, Mrs. Kim? I pulled him into the water with me, suit and all, and kissed him until the water went cold, and we had to relocate to the bed anyway, trailing wet footprints and laughter. Later, wrapped in sheets and each other, I traced the dragon on his neck and thought about how far we'd come. From a rainy night of terror and recognition, through violence and revelation, to this, to peace won through blood and love. I love you, I whispered into his skin. I know I said it before, but I need you to hear it again. I love you. The ghost loved you. Maya Morrison loved you without knowing why, and Maya Kim loves you with everything I am. I love you too. His arms tightened around me. Every version of you, every iteration. The woman who held a gun to my head and stole my heart. The woman who ran through rain to save herself. The woman who walked into a council meeting wounded and made them submit. I love all of you. The door creaked open. Jiho stood in the doorway, clutching his dinosaur and looking uncertain. Aoma? I had a bad dream. Come here, baby. I held out my arms, and he scrambled onto the bed, wedging himself between us. We've got you. Both of you? His small voice was thick with sleep and fear. Both of us, Woojin confirmed. Always both of us. We're a family, Jiho. Nothing changes that. Even when the new baby comes? Especially when the new baby comes. I kissed his forehead. You'll be the best big brother in the world. He considered this seriously. Can I teach them about dinosaurs? You can teach them anything you want. Satisfied, he snuggled between us and drifted back to sleep almost immediately. Woojin caught my eye over his head, and we shared a smile that contained everything, love and exhaustion and wonder. This was it. This was the life we'd fought for. Not perfect, not safe, but ours. The snow continued falling outside, covering the city in white. Somewhere out there, the criminal underground churned and plotted and moved like a living thing. Somewhere out there, threats still existed, enemies still schemed. But inside this penthouse, inside this bed with my husband and my son, we were untouchable. 3 years ago, the ghost had died to save the man she loved. But she'd been reborn into something stronger, something that couldn't be erased or forgotten or destroyed. She'd been reborn into a queen, and the queen's reign was just beginning. The rain fell again 6 months later, but this time I stood in the Onyx Lounge by choice. The heavy oak door opened, and a woman stumbled through, soaked, terrified, running from something she couldn't see but felt in her bones. I knew that look. Had worn it myself not so long ago. She saw me standing at the bar, Jiho playing with blocks at my feet, my hand resting on the swell of my pregnant belly. Saw Woojin emerge from his office, moving toward me with that predatory grace. Please, she gasped. Someone's following me. I didn't know where else. You're safe now, I told her, my voice gentle but firm. The wolf and his queen protect those who seek sanctuary. Sit, tell us your story. Woojin's hand found my shoulder, his presence solid and warm behind me. We help those who can't help themselves, he added. That's what ghosts do. We haunt the monsters. The woman looked between us. This strange, dangerous couple in their fortress of glass and stone, and burst into tears of relief. I nodded to Marco, who moved to secure the door. To Woojin, who poured 3 glasses of whiskey with steady hands. To my son, who watched with his father's serious eyes and was learning even now what it meant to be part of this family. The ghost had come home, and she was hungry.